Okay. Well, thank you all for coming today. This is the second chart delineation class that I have done. This is a series that Luke offers through the school, and different astrologers teach the class. Is it every other Friday, Luke?
Every fortnight, yeah. Every fortnight.
Every Friday.
No, every
Okay.
fortnight. Fortnight. Every
Okay.
2 weeks. Fridays every 2 weeks. So the next one will be well, if today's, what are you guys, the 16th now? Because I'm the
We're the
17th.
yeah. We're the
Yeah.
16th.
So you get me getting up in the morning.
Yeah. Thank you. And so I have taught one before. We've covered a few things. We're going to cover different things this time. Cheryl Ann, you were in the first one, weren't you?
Nope.
No?
No.
Okay. I thought you might have been. So, but what we're going to do is I'm teaching the basics of astrology, and then what we're going to do is what we're covering tonight. We're going to apply them to our charts and start to read charts. And so
Perfect.
we'll start with that. So basically, I always start with this because the study of astrology is really the path to self-discovery for all of us. And it's such a valuable tool to help you understand yourself, but also understand everyone else around you, because basically we're all the same. We express things differently, but we all have the same needs, wants, desires. And so, what this tool does, it's a tool and it helps to build our self awareness. It helps improve our understanding of others and how they react, why they react, what might be going on beneath the surface when you don't understand things. It offers timing and purpose, and it helps increase clarity and confidence, not only for yourself, but understanding yourself from a very core innate level. And it really just you start going down the rabbit hole once you start studying astrology, and it's actually a wonderful, wonderful tool. Michelle, are you taking a class right now?
No, I went one day and then I dropped out.
What'd you do that for?
Yeah, I really didn't. I just didn't feel right being in the class. It wasn't what I expected. So she said that was fine.
Okay. Well, maybe you can join Luke's school.
That's what I'm
Which class?
thinking. We'll see. I
Which
figured if this works out nice, maybe this would be what I'm looking for.
yeah,
Good.
which class did you attend, Michelle?
It was something local by, was it Kemen? I don't know how to pronounce.
Ma'am, it's a local, it's not a school, it's a center. It's a
Oh,
center.
okay.
Okay.
Sorry, it's not an organized college. So what's your level of astrology knowledge, Michelle?
I have been studying astrology for 50 years
Oh,
at least,
you got a
and
pretty good understanding.
yeah, but I've never like really taken the time to really like, I want to say memorize things. I know enough to like skim a little bit, but I've always wanted to learn how to actually read a chart. I've had my chart read since I was 18 and I'm now 62. So I've had my
Okay.
chart read every 6 months since I was 18.
Well,
So
I would suggest if you do anything, do the basic astrology course that gives
Mm-hmm.
you all of it, how to read a chart and understand it. And then from there, if you decide you wanted to go on and study it, then you would move into studying, because there's no homework with that one, but it'll give you an understanding. My partner Lydia did that. Now she's decided to start in that one, and she's doing that.
right, and
But she
that's
was
sort
very
of
much,
what I
very
would,
much like
that's,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to do. The class that I had taken, with the other people, basically the first week it was just a matter of showing like where the north node was and where your ascendant is, and but just real, it wasn't what I expected it to be. So not that you don't have to know that, but I just didn't have a good feeling about it. So I said, I'm not
So
doing
you
it.
walked out. Yeah, I got you. Okay. All right.
But
We'll
I
see how
will,
we go.
yeah,
All
we'll
right.
see how this one goes.
Cheryl, what
Okay.
about you? Where are you at with astrology?
So I took the natal certificate with IAA a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've been studying on my own before, and of course I've been studying on my own since.
Okay. Are you reading charts?
Not professionally at the moment, though I have dabbled here and there.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. We'll see how we do today. So basically, what we're going to cover today, if my computer works, we're going to look at the planets, which we have to do in order to read the chart. But we're going to be focusing on Mercury, Venus, and Mars today. Okay. We're going to be looking at hemisphere emphasis and learning about what that is and means and how do you interpret that in reading a birth chart. And we're going to be looking at the 12 houses and then how you combine the planets with the houses in your delineation, how you interpret that. So those are the things we're going to be working on today. If we have time and we get into it, we might get into aspects, but if not, then I'll do that in the next one that I do. Okay.
Perfect.
So there are the 10 planets, and basically the planets all represent different functions, different energies, and or different life principles when you look at them in the chart. They are influencing us from the sky above, and they are very much intertwined with the events that happen here on Earth, even though we may not understand that or know that. Their energies are influencing us. It's just uncanny. Even when I read something today and what I experienced and what it said, it was like through the Sabian symbols of a Venus transit. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that, but it's uncanny how interrelated all of this is. Now, this is something that I covered in the last session, so I'm not going to be focusing on this today, but we cannot have a session without talking about the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. So basically, the primary indicators in the birth chart or that determine the personality of all of us are the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. And when people say to you, what's your three? That's what they're asking you. So the sun, and you can see the symbol here of what the sun is. It's basically a circle with a dot in it, and it represents your experience here on earth. It's your identity, it's your will, it's the essence of who you are. So when you look at the chart and you see the sun, that is where you shine. That is where you feel the most comfortable, where you find that in the chart. It's what you identify with, and it's basically not necessarily how other people identify with you, but how you identify with yourself. Okay, so it's your conscious purpose. It represents the present, it represents the Father, but it represents how you see yourself. So you typically always start with the sun, or the moon actually tells us about our innermost need. And we all have this in our chart, and we all have all 12 expressions of the sign of the house, or the houses, the planets. We have all the planets in our chart. And so we all experience these things. They just have different core energies. So the moon is what you need. It's your private feelings, it's your subconscious habits from the past. You may not even be aware of what you do, why you do, because it can very much be the moon acting. And so when the moon goes around each month, and it goes through, the new moon, the first quarter moon, the full moon, those are actually bringing up unconscious needs within us. Everyone on the planet is being affected by that. And it's basically, how it relates to their chart is how they're going to react or respond each month to the cycle of the moon. But it ties into our past, it ties into our childhood, our lineage, our ancestry, past lives, if you believe in past lives. But it also represents the public when you're reading mundane charts. But it's a sensitivity. It's your instincts. And that's what the moon is in your chart.
Could I add to that, Diane?
Yes, please.
Just the sun and the moon. So as a soul born here, these are your first identities of your parents.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
it's your father and your mother. That's all. I was just going to add
Oh,
that
really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
in.
Yes. And typically the sun represents the father and the moon represents the mother, typically.
Yeah.
But they could be flopped depending on how your parents took on their roles. So when you're reading a chart, you have to ask the customer or the client or the person you're reading, you know, who had the dominant role, or who was the disciplinarian in the family, because that's the paternal role. And so sometimes they'll flopped.
Interestingly enough, in single parent families, you find often in the chart of the child, which is the person you might be reading for, there may be a disconnect or a definite connection between the sun and moon, because it was the one parent having to do both roles. So that's another interesting thing. Anyway, I'm just adding to that, Diane. Sorry.
No, I welcome that. Hi, Sheila.
I am so grateful that you asked me to be included in this, and I just now saw it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Diane.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad you could join us.
Okay. So
We'll get-
what did I miss? Just sun, moon, and ascendant?
Yeah, we're just starting. We're just
Oh,
starting.
Yeah.
praise the
And so the ascendant is actually your rising sign. And so the ascendant is very personal to each individual chart, because the sign on the zodiac that was rising over the eastern horizon at the time of your birth changes every 4 minutes. So the degree will change. And that's why it's important when we ask for the exact time of birth, because it changes your house system when you're reading the chart. And so you can get a more accurate read when you know the exact time of birth. Okay, now you can read charts without having the exact time of birth. And the way I do it is I put the sun on the ascendant, and then I read it from the perspective of the sun, from the conscious will of the person. And that can be done if you don't have the birth time. Okay, but typically the ascendant is very much, it's very personal. It really sets the person apart as a unique individual. And the ascendant is basically how the world sees you, how other people see you. And it also represents the mask that you wear. It's how you want people to see you. It's not necessarily how you are. The sun is how you feel comfortable, how you shine, what you identify with, where your concentrated energy is. And the ascendant is how you want other people to see you, or how other people see you. Now, both the sun and the ascendant are here to be learned. So you're learning them. Even though it's your sun and even though it's your ascendant, you're learning how to become them throughout your entire life. So, like, I'm a Cancer, I'm a 2-degree Cancer, and I'm still learning how to be a Cancer. And trust me, I did not identify with it probably until about 16 years ago. And so you're constantly learning how to develop these principles and these qualities, and they overlap each other. Does anyone have any questions? You're welcome to ask questions at any time.
I was just going to add to the ascendant is also your physical appearance a lot of the time.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
how when you say present to people, it's what you look like. It makes up your physical, and planets in the first house color that as well.
Yes.
So you have this blend.
It has to do with your environment too, as well. But it represents your, well, we'll get into the houses. The houses are coming. But yes, thank you. And so these are the 3 symbols. And so these are your 3. And then we have the personal planets. Okay, the personal planets are the planets that are closest to the sun. And so they are the planets that we all relate to on a personal basis. And the first one, which is closest to the sun, is Mercury. And so this is the symbol here of Mercury. And you can see these little antennas at the top, or it's you're tuned in. It's your intellect. It's what you're bringing in to your consciousness, your awareness. And it represents I think. So it is the messenger. It's the, Hermes, it's represented by Hermes, which was the god that could travel between the outer world and the underworld. So it's the messenger. He would take messages back and forth. It's how you think, how you communicate, how you reason, how you formulate ideas and concepts. And if you take it further, it has to do with travel. It has to do with local travels for the most part, but how you get from here to there. It has to do with commerce and money, how you exchange, how you trade, how you negotiate. Well, not negotiate, but it has to do with exchange. And it also has to do with sales and presentation, but it's your daily functioning skills of communication in the world. And anything that has to do with Mercury. And it also represents how you learn as a child. If you have a conflicted Mercury in your chart, you might have trouble learning. If you are born with a Mercury retrograde in your chart, you might feel different, or you might learn differently, or people may not understand how you communicate or how you think because it's retrograde. There's so many levels to this. But basically it's how you interact with the world and your environment. It also rules the environment that you find yourself in. Luke?
I was also going to say it's basically anything to do with the transaction. So
Yes.
the exchange of anything, ideas, exchange of contracts, monies, for being the bridge between two things. So, and that's what Mercury, being the ruler of Gemini, is all about, duality as well. So there's a lot more to Mercury. And the other thing I was going to say is Mercury is the only planet that's sexless. So
Yes.
it's not masculine or feminine in its principles. And primarily, in some ways, doesn't have, what's the word for it? It doesn't have an energy that it produces of its own. It's purely a conduit for other energies. That's another way I would look at it. So when it forms aspects with planets, or it's sitting with planets, it takes on those energies and gives that planet the ability to transact in other forms and be used in other areas. Would that be another way of saying it?
Yes. No, it's very, very helpful. Very helpful.
Okay.
Any questions by anyone?
Mercury's damn clever. That's what it is.
It is clever. Yes, it's clever. It's curious. It wants to know everything. It wants to dabble, and it easily gets distracted and off course. It's curious. Then we have Venus, which is the next planet. And Venus it has to do with harmony. It has to do with balance, beauty, attraction, desire. It wants to bond. It wants to bond with people, things. It wants to tap to things. So it has to do with attachments. It has to do with aesthetics as far as decorating and bonding people together, negotiating people, being able to be diplomatic. It wants to be pleasant. It has good taste, good charm, good skills. It's desirable. The qualities of Venus. Venus is a benefic planet, so wherever you have Venus in your chart, it tends to bring you good things unless it's debilitated. Now, if you have a debilitated Venus in your chart, which means that it could be in a difficult sign, or it could be in a difficult aspect, or it could be retrograde in your chart, that means that you are working on love, self-love most likely, but you're learning on lessons of love and harmony and relationships and how you relate and interact with other peoples.
Looking at your chart when you put it up to start with, does that mean that comes from personal experience?
Trust me, it's a lifelong challenge. Yeah,
Sorry.
you have no idea what's in my chart. I've got
Oh, I saw it straight away.
I've got a lot of difficult aspects in my chart.
Yeah,
So
we
yes,
learn.
it does. Does anyone have any questions about Venus? No?
I'll make a comment. Venus is all those lovely, wonderful, beautiful things, but every planet and every energy has a positive and it has a negative. And Venus's negatives, it can be lazy, it can be selfish, it can be lustful and desirous, and basically you could say get away with things. Venus tends to be everyone's love interest, everyone's, what they're attracted to, but even if it's for the wrong reasons at times. So it can, so when you have a Venus that is ill aspected, that sometimes what you need to look at is what the actual motivations are behind the person who has that ill aspected Venus.
Yes, yes. I mean, you could be the snake charmer.
That's right. You could be the snake charmer. That's right. You could be the Medusa in some ways.
Exactly. Oh, where'd we go?
You went the wrong way. Forward, not backward.
Okay.
There you go.
Then we have Mars. Okay. Now, Mars is the first planet beyond the Earth. Okay. And, but still it is known as a personal planet. And so Mars is the warrior principle. It is the energy that gets us out of bed in the morning and we put our 2 feet on the ground and we have purpose. It's what we act on. It has to do with bravery, athleticism, wars, fighting, depending on the energy that you put out, but it has to do with force. It has to do with either, the intention of will and the intention. Basically, it's the action of the sun. It's how the sun expresses itself. It's through the activities of Mars. It's how you interact with the world. It's basically your personal drives. It also represents sexuality or how you assert yourself in the world. When you're looking at relationship charts, typically when women look for the Mars energy in the male charts, or actually the Mars energy in the women's chart, is what type of man they're looking for. The female energy, the Venus in men's charts, is basically the female energy that men are looking for. And you have both qualities in your own chart, but it's like what the Venus is what you desire, and the Mars is what how you move forward in life. There are many other things that determine relationships, but these are the basic principles. If you have an ill aspected Mars in your chart, then you are acting on how you behave. It has to do with your personal behavior. You're learning the right and the wrong way to behave in the world, how to get what you want. And basically, that's what Mars does. It asserts itself to get what it wants in the world. And so when Mars is retrograde, either in your personal chart or in the world, we just went through retrogrades with all these 3 planets. And so it means that they're delayed in some way, or they're exacerbated in some way, but they don't behave in the natural way that we're used to, in the balanced, harmonious way. So typically when planets are in retrograde, it means that they're processing. They're not in alignment or in agreement with the norm of society, the norm of its status quo. And so if you are born with planets that are retrograde, it means that you're working on changing your understanding or your acceptability or receptivity or actions on events in the world. So you're actually a change maker when you are born with retrograde planets. Either you're making personal changes, but you're also changing others because you're questioning how things are. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Do you want to add to Mars?
I would also say it's a bit like the area of your life where you can feel uncomfortable, because it can create division. So the general thing for Mars is to plant new seeds, to initiate projects, to make change, to drive you to do things. So I don't relate it exactly to this, but it's a bit like, I call it thumbtack on the seat principle. And Mars often generates or creates. So what I mean by thumbtack on the seat is people are creatures of habit. So they, you give them food, love, and shelter, and they'll be sitting there forever. They don't really care. I'm nice and comfortable. But if someone puts a thumbtack on your seat, you get up pretty quick. So Mars can often be the initiator of some form of pain or disruption. So, therefore it makes you move. Its job is to make you move, to change, to do things. So that's why Mars can sometimes be, Mars can be the ruler of accidents. It can be when you burn yourself, cut yourself, different sorts of things that you do, and usually out of something rash or quick or something that happens. So Mars is usually if something's happening in your life where something happens to you, it's an indicator that maybe Mars is unsettled and it's trying to cause you to make a change somewhere. It's like that. That'd be
Very
my
good.
add in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. And then I'm going to briefly talk about Jupiter and Saturn, but I'm not going to get into the outer planets in this session. Actually, I'm going to cover Jupiter and Saturn more in the next one as well. But Jupiter is basically how you grow in the world. It has to do with your expansion, how you learn, how you experience the world, how you improve. It has to do with optimism. It has to do with your desires for the future, what you want to do, how do you want to improve. And so it really has to do with the developing higher learning, education, higher education, politics, spirituality, morals, ethics, truth, anything that has to do with wisdom. It's the development, the higher development of your life, where you're headed. It's a benefic planet. It has to do with good. Wherever you find Jupiter in your chart, it's where you're expanding yourself, where good things come to you. It's where, and again, it can be retrograde and it can be in difficult positions, but it brings more. And so Jupiter is currently in Gemini right now. So wherever you have Gemini in your charts is what you're expanding right now in your life. And it's going to go into Cancer in June. So wherever you have Cancer in your charts, that area of your life is going to start to expand in June for the year, for the whole year. It basically it takes 12 years to make a complete rotation around the sun. Does anyone have any, or Luke, do you want to add to that?
I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay. And then Saturn. Now, these are called social planets. The first three were personal planets, and they have to do with ourselves, our inner development, our personal development. Jupiter and Saturn are social planets. So they have more to do with the society in which we find ourselves. And so Saturn is our teacher. Hi, Carolyn.
Hello.
Thanks for joining
Hi,
us.
Carolyn.
Hi. I was feeding people.
Oh, Saturn is the teacher in our charts. And where we find Saturn in our charts is basically where we're learning our hardest lessons in this life. It typically will be in an area where we feel insufficient, inadequate. We don't think we have everything we need in that area. So we're constantly working on this area where we find Saturn in our chart. And by the time our life ends, we become experts, we become masters. And so we're working on mastery wherever we find Saturn. If it's well aspected, you could already have mastery in some area of your life where you're very capable, competent, respected. If it's challenged, then you're working on it. But it's the teacher aspect, and it also holds great restrictions. It will test you. You have to perform, and as you perform and as you accomplish, then you move on. So it shows maturity, it shows evolution. It's also fears. Saturn holds a lot of fears. They're most likely unconscious fears, or their resistance. It could be blocks, but it basically rules the universal laws. So it has to do with time. It has to do with gravity, cycles, karma, maturation, and old age. It's the timekeeper. And so, when you have a Saturn return, you have completed one cycle of your life. It's a completion. And then you start the next cycle, which they typically last 28 to 29 and a half years, your Saturn return. But that's a whole nother topic.
The fun stages.
Yes. Anyone have
I say that
questions?
tongue in cheek. I was just going to say that I like the fact you called it I manifest.
Yes.
Most of the time you see Saturn is something like, I restrict or or I limit, those sorts of things. I like the fact that it's I manifest. Basically, to me, what I would add to that would be Saturn rewards hard work. So once you learn your lessons of life, so basically it's the lessons and the structures and coming, some of those things might be coming to terms with physical limitations, mental or emotional limitations, and accepting them and restructuring the way you handle things, that it brings you rewards for the effort you put in. So that's basically other component of Saturn that I would say is a really important thing. Saturn is probably one of the most important planets in the chart, because if you want to know what your lessons are in life, go and look at Saturn and its aspects.
Yeah.
And then start working on those, and you'll start basically working towards understanding what your lessons are and what you got to learn. Anyway, that's another thing I'd add.
No, very good. It is rewards. Reap the rewards. And that's the karma. If you work hard, you get the reward. If you screw up, you get the reward.
Might not be the one you want.
That's right. All right. So I am skipping the transpersonal planets for this class, but there is also Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, but we're not going to talk about them right now. So I want to go over the hemisphere emphasis. So in your birth chart, stop that. Basically, you have the circle, okay? And the circle represents you, your life, your field of experience. And then you have the horizon line. And so this represents the line of awareness, but it also represents, this is the relationship line, how you relate, how you cooperate, how you work with other people. So it has to do with your line of awareness. And then you also have the vertical line, which is the meridian line. And so this is actually starts to build the cross of your experience on earth, the material cross, but this represents the line of concrete experience. So it has to do with the foundation of the family, and then your interacting in the world, and how you manifest and what you contribute to the world. But if you put it all together, it has to do with your complete experience on the earth. So if you look at your 10 planets and you see where they cluster. So if you have a cluster where there's an overemphasis in the upper half of the chart, and you can see there on the illustration, the white part, okay? If most of your planets are in the upper hemisphere, it means that innately, you are going to be much more active in the world. You're going to be you're going to be seen, you're going to be extroverted, you're going to be involved, conscious in the public life, in your career, within groups, within society. You're going to be extroverted more so just by looking at the chart. Okay? If most of your planets are on the lower hemisphere, and we, typically we have planets on both sides, but I'm talking about the emphasis, okay? Because that will be how you present in the world. So if the lower hemisphere is more of a subjective interaction with the world, so you're more so working on yourself, you're working on your private life, you're working on your inner awareness, you're more introverted in a worldview. You're not necessarily the one that's going to be on the phone making the sales calls or going out and making presentations, or that might be uncomfortable for you. You would be more comfortable doing your own work, doing your own research, spending time within your own environment, making your house would be your home. So there's more of a focus on your personal life than there is on your outer life. Luke, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you've covered it pretty well.
Okay.
I was also just going to say that, yeah, it's you'll often see, how you just basically count how many planets are above or below. What would you say is an emphasis? That was my question to you. What would for everybody, would 7 or more planets in either sign, either area would be an emphasis?
I would think so. I mean, 6
Yeah.
is over 4. So I mean, you could go as low as 6, but still that's still pretty equivalent.
Yeah.
7 would, I think, be a good indicator. And you can include more than the planets. You can include the nodes. Then there's asteroids. But primarily, we're just focusing on planets right now.
Okay.
Now there's also the vertical aspects. Okay, so you have the rising hemisphere. So if you have the majority of your planets on the left side of the chart, that means that you're sowing seeds. Okay, you in this life, you are working on developing new karma. You're motivating new behaviors. You're more independent, you're more active, but you're breaking ground. You're initiating new. You're not necessarily reaping the rewards, but you're initiating new forms of behavior or new awarenesses. And I say of self because the whole chart is you. It has to do with you, your life, your life experience, why you're here. So you're sowing seeds. And if you have the majority of the planets on the left side of the chart, that's the setting side of the chart. And so you're reaping the benefits, or you're reaping the rewards, or you're reaping the karma of seeds that you have sown in the past. Could be good or bad. But you're more receptive, you're more interdependent, you're more otherworldly directed. Awareness of others is more important. You're involved with other people more. So it's a different focus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Okay. And then we're going to cover the houses. And so basically every birth chart has and this is being shown evenly divided. Now, depending on where you're born and depending on which house system you use and how you cast the chart in your program, these may not look like this. Some houses may be bigger and some houses may be smaller and some houses may be intercepted, but that's more advanced and we're not going to get into that right now. But basically each chart is divided into 12 different houses, and each house has 30-degree segments. And so if you take 12 times 30, you get a 360-degree wheel. So there's 360 degrees in the zodiac. Okay. And so the first house is the first house underneath the ascendant, underneath the rising sign. Okay. And so that is the first house. And so that first house has to do with how other people see me, my image, my appearance, my outer personality. It has to do with your physical environment, with your body. So when planets transit into your first house, well, that's another aspect of transiting planets, but we're just talking about your natal planets right now. But what you find in the first house, those planets are focusing on you, your body, your health. Well, not even your health. It has to do with, how you see yourself, how you express yourself. Basically, it has to do with you, first house. Okay. The second house, and so it goes in a counterclockwise direction. When you're reading a birth chart and when you're looking at the chart, they go counterclockwise. The second house has to do with your money, your resources, your talents, your assets, your values. It's all about what you have. So the first house is you. And the second house is what you have, what you own, what you possess, what you value. Do you follow?
Mhm.
Okay. And then the third house is how you communicate. So the first 3 houses are all about you on a personal level. And so the third house has to do with communication, networking, learning, engaging, transactions, your local environment or the environment that you're comfortable with, that you're familiar with, your immediate, surroundings, your day-to-day experiences. It has to do with data, it has to do with media, but your interactions. So, and this is called the first quadrant of the house, the wheel. It's the first quadrant, and it's the personal quadrant. Okay. And then you go on to the fourth house, which is at the first cross. Okay, you still want to remember the cross, and this is the cross of matter. So when things are, the houses on the cross of matter, you're going to feel stronger than the others. So the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, and the 10th house, those are on the angles, and those are more intense houses than the other houses, so to speak. The fourth house, it has to do with your home, your family, your foundation. It's the bottom of the chart. Okay. This is the bottom of the chart. So this is you on the most personal, deep level. It's the root of who you are. And it may be the deepest, the part of yourself that you don't share. It could be the emotions within yourself that are private to you, and only a few people get to know you in that way. But it has to do with your family, it has to do with your upbringing, your unconscious things that have been given to you by your family and your ancestors. Anything else, Luke, you want to add to the fourth house?
Can represent one of your parents, usually your father,
Yes.
and therefore it often has a direct lineage to your ancestry as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
your physical ancestry. That's the other thing that comes through the fourth house.
Your lineage.
Hmm.
The fifth house is the fun house. Okay. Now, well, we'll get into the aspects. I'm not going to bring it now. But the fifth the fifth house is where you're creative. It's your self-expression. It's where it represents your children, because that is an expression of you. Have created those children. It could be projects, things that art, books, or writing. It's what you create, what comes out of you, how you express yourself. It also has to do with love and romance and who you love. It has to do with loved ones, basically, who you love, who loves you. And it has risk taking. It could be fun, adventures, vacation, athletics. It's self-expression, basically. And because now the fourth, fifth, and the sixth house are now transpersonal, they involve more than just you. They involve other people. Where the first, second, and third house are more personal. Fourth, fifth, and sixth are personal, yet now you're starting to branch into interacting and interrelating with other people, but they're still, foundational, under the surface houses, more subdued, more, under the surface understandings. And then the sixth house has to do with health, your health. It has to do with your lifestyle, your routine, your schedule, your work, your day-to-day habits, your duties to other people, your obligations to other people, your service to other people. It has to do with small animals. Horses are large animals. So like dogs, cats, goats,
Birds.
small birds, pets. But it also has to do with fabrics, textiles, merchandise, not real estate, but
Your work duties and your employees,
yes.
rather than bosses.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that, just so people are aware why does it represent small animals? Is because they fall under a responsibility,
Oh, good.
Hmm.
and they
That's-
need to live in a routine.
Okay. Very good.
So
Very good. And it also represents, in mundane charts, it represents the civic people who work for the city. It represents the military. It represents anything that has to do with the routine of public service of a country. So in the sixth house, though, it's a house where you have to make adjustments. It's not an easy house. The fifth house is an easy house, it's a fun house. The sixth house is a house where you have to make adjustments. The fourth house is a house that is difficult. Well, it doesn't have to be difficult, but it's a square. So it has to do with a strain of some sort that you're trying to overcome, understand, work out. That's why we typically have family relationships that we don't necessarily understand or agree with because we're working on developing and understanding.
Can I add to that, Diane? Also, typically that those squares from the 4th to the 10th house, when we say they rule your parents, at some stage of your life, you have to become independent and break free from your parents.
Yes. Yes.
That's part of the lesson.
And then the seventh house is where you can see across the table. Now, this is where we're coming above the horizon. So when you get to the seventh house, this is where you're being seen. You're being seen by the outer world. The first six houses are under the horizon. So they're more so things you're working out within your life for yourself, understanding. And then anything above the horizon is for the benefit or the interactions with others, either in society, one-on-one in relationships, or in the world at large. So the seventh house represents one-on-one relationships. It represents people that you make contracts with, particularly. They're not typically your average relationships, but there's something about them that there's a commitment involved and there's an awareness or a responsibility that each has to each other. So it could be a marriage relationship, it could be a business relationship, it could be a boss to an employee, it could be a legal agreement, it could be enemies,
Are you saying sometimes your marriage partners become your enemy?
Oh, yes. There's a very fine line.
Sorry. I only said sometimes. I didn't say all the time.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But the seventh house, it basically has to do with relationships, how you communicate, how you relate, how you cooperate. And the eighth house has to do with shared resources with other people. And they're not your resources. They're not yours. The second house is your resources. The eighth house is shared resources. And so the second and eighth houses are the money houses in the chart. And our eighth represents many things, but it can symbolize death, in which case inheritances may come out of that deal. It can represent endings of others, not necessarily of yourself. Endings of yourself is typically the fourth house, but it's other people's finances, other people's, your indebtedness to other people or their indebtedness to you. It has to do with dependency issues, one to another, counseling issues, intimacy issues, sexual issues. Actually, when you're looking for relationships, you're going to look at the fifth, the seventh, and the eighth, and also the 11th houses. But the eighth house is more about sexual intimacy or sharing privacies, counseling, secrets that are private, shared, privileged secrets. Eighth house.
You could always also say it's your dark side of your desires.
I don't know about that. My son sits in the eighth house, so I'm not going to accept that one.
Well, yeah, okay, you're fine. When I say it tongue in cheek, but at the same time, it's a bit not saying that, but you got to look at obviously where your sun rules and what sign it's in and all those sorts of things. But I find the eighth house, can I say it like this? An afflicted eighth house for somebody might find that they have rather afflicted ways of looking at their intimacy.
That could be.
Let's put it that way. So it can show up the darker side of somebody's behaviors towards those relationships and how they deal with people.
Oh, that could be too. Yes, that could be
So
too.
let's put it this way. The fifth house will be your fun sex and the eighth house will be your taboo sex.
Yes, or your indebtedness.
Yes. So the other key point about the eighth house to me is it's very complex to interpret sometimes.
The eighth house has to do with revision. The key point of it is you're revising It's the house of psychology. It's the house of metaphysics, of the occult, of the areas, the alternative lifestyles, the alternative ways of life that aren't the norm, aren't the status quo. So it has to do with revising the consciousness or the revision of the psychology on some level. But it's a very deep topic. You could go down the rabbit hole with the eighth house. It's the house of magic. It's the house of alchemy. It's the house of Scorpio. It's not bad. It's just that it's not easy. It's not an easy house. Any questions on eighth? Ninth, another fun house. Fun house. The ninth house is your goals, your future, your travels, learning about the world, different cultures, different religions, philosophy, higher education, your expansion. I love the ninth house. That's my favorite. Well, the fifth and the ninth. And then we go to the 10th house, which is another angled house. So this is where you shine in the world. This is what you do. This is your career. This is your public standing, your public status, your accomplishments, your achievements. It's how the world sees you. You're out there. You are not hidden. Whatever in the 10th house, it's for all to see. But it has to do with your authority in the world, your vocation. It can also represent the father, and the fourth house can represent the mother, although that can flop too. Different people read that differently, but it's another parental house. But typically it has to do with the father. It could have to do with the government. It could have to do with your boss. It has to do with work. The 11th house is society. Now, the 10th, 11th, and the 7th, 8th, and 9th houses have to do with the immediate social interaction with the world. And 10th, 11th, and 12th have to do with the world itself on a global level, global interaction. So the 11th house has to do with groups, organizations, teams, colleagues, collective thinking, collective relations, collective social changes. It has to do with it's the house of Aquarius. So it's the future, but it's also how do we change the future to improve things for the rest of the world. So it has a very upbeat, positive flair to it. It also has to do with your hopes, wishes, and dreams. It's another money house of rewards. And then, of course, the 12th house is the completion. It's the last house. It's the end of the not the karmic cycle, but on one level it is. But it represents the end of the cycle, the last house, and this could be, symbolize a lot of things. It has to do with endings, retirement, dealing with unfinished business from the past, ghosts from the past, things that your ancestors have handed to you to resolve, to work out, to address. It has to do with your soul, your connection to the spirit world, your connection to anything that has to do with religion, connections with the God source, connections with your intuition, with psychisms. It also has to do with retreats, being cloistered, removing yourself from the world, hiding from the world. It could have to do with secrets, addiction, things that you hide, or it could have to do with your unconscious, that things that are hidden, that are suppressed, that may work against you and you don't understand why. It's a lot of things. It's not the easiest house, but it has to do with your legacy. It has to do with completion. Luke, you want to add to that?
I think you've covered it, really. The 12th house, also from a mundane point of view, it's hospitals, institutionalization. So it can also represent some form of institutionalization. So imprisonment, or somebody who, I've got one of my, I could call her my sister, but she's sister from another mister, literally, because she was my mum's best friend. And she has a son who has 7 planets in Taurus in the 12th house. And
Wow.
he had a problem at birth and has cerebral palsy. So he's trapped and imprisoned in his body.
Interesting.
As an example. So yet he's one of the strongest kids. He's now 25, and he wasn't even expected to be able to walk. And he walks and he does things, and he even plays soccer, and he's an amazing person. So that's a bad example of how the 12th house can bring some sort of limitation. And then you've got people who have strong 12th houses, like someone like Madonna. And maybe in her case, overcoming debts of the past was part of having to be a public person in some way. I'm not sure, but it's a very interesting house, the 12th. That's all I'm going to say. You could spend all of those three houses, the border houses, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th are really often the most difficult to interpret, I find, because there's such complexity to them. They're not actively out there for everyone to see. It's probably the other way I'd look at it.
No,
How's that?
very good. No, very good. So that is basically what I wanted to cover before we start looking at charts. Now, I did put in the aspects. Oh, geez, we got a lot more here yet. Do you guys understand the signs? Let me quickly go through the signs. So the signs, there are 12 signs, and they have to do with the characteristics on how so we have the planets, but then we want to say how we're going to describe the planet. What is the personality of the planet? What is the characteristic of the planet? How does the planet express itself? What is the energy of the planet? And so there are 12 basic psychological needs that we all experience. And so those are broken up into the signs of the zodiac. And like Luke said before, you can have a skillful application of the energy or an unskillful application of the energy. And what we're learning through this life is how to resolve those unskillful applications. So basically, interestingly enough, the first one is Aries. And Aries is the I am principle, because we've had, and I just got out of a different presentation, but because we've had the Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde, the solar, all three of those were at 9 and 10 degrees Aries recently in the sky.
I love you, Dolly.
And all of us collectively on this planet have been working on the I am principle in our own lives, because now Saturn and Neptune are going to be ingressing into Aries for the next 36 years. The I am principle is going to be front and center in all of our lives. I'm probably telling you more than you need to know, but I can't help it. The world is now all about Aries, okay? And our lives are going to be all about Aries. How the Aries part of our charts is going to be lit up like a Christmas tree. And it has been lit up like a Christmas tree, but it is going to be, that is the area of our chart now that we're all going to be developing. But anyway, it has to do with activity, and the ruler of Aries is Mars. So it's very similar in expression to the Mars planet. It has to do with activity, assertion, initiative. The unskillful application is impulsiveness. We have the bull, which is Taurus, and this is ruled by Venus. So the principle behind Taurus is I have. So it wants to possess something, it wants to see results, it wants to experience productivity, it wants to be resourceful, it wants something tangible, it wants to see fruits of its labor. So it's about being resourceful and stable. And the unskillful application of this is materialism. But this is the flavor of Taurus. The Gemini is ruled by Mercury. And so, again, very similar to the planet Mercury. It has to do with I think, I analyze, I rationalize, I'm curious, I'm inquisitive, I'm flexible. These are all qualities of the principle of Gemini. It's the skillful expression is the intelligence, looking to learn. The unskillful is superficiality or gossip or spreading rumors. That's the unskillful application of Gemini, but very similar to the same qualities as Mercury. Cancer is I feel. This is ruled by the moon, and it has to do with the feelings. So it will be about the mother principle, nurturing, feeding, protecting, clothing, creating a sense of family, being receptive, warmth, security. These are all qualities of the Cancer principle. And so the unskillful is insecurity. You can express any of these qualities in the negative way, where instead of feeling secure, you feel insecure. And that's the crab, where the crab puts the shell over itself and hides. That's one of the aspects of cancers. The lion is Leo, and this is the ruler of this is the sun. So when the quality of Leo is I show, I present, I am on display, I am an actor, I am an actress, I am theatrical, I am dramatic, I am on a stage. But it has to do with creativity, it has to do with self-expression, it has to do with artistic abilities, musical abilities, dance, has to do with theater, love, appreciation, the heart. It has to do with the heart, expressions of the heart. And unskillful is pride or ego applications. Virgo is the virgin. It's also ruled by Mercury. It's not the opposite, but it's another expression of the rationale. The Gemini aspect is more of the communications, the interrelations, the interconnectivities. And the Virgo expression of the Mercury quality is the details, to be exact, to discriminate, to be perfect, to be flawless, to be right. It also has to do with health and the body itself and how the functions perform and integrate. And it has to do with clarity. It has to do with efficiency. It's another earth sign, so it has to do with, again, growth, productivity, working with the hands. But the unskillful is you could get lost in the perfection aspects. You can criticism if things aren't right, judgmental. You want to add to that, Luke?
I think you've summed it up, but the only thing I would say is that Virgo also has a lot to do with the work principles and work ethic, and also from that work, the harvest. Literally, it represents the harvest time.
Yes.
So it's literally, and it's also the other thing I would put it down is it's craftsmanship.
Craftsmanship. Yes.
Yeah, that would be another good word for it.
And purity.
Yeah.
Health, cleanliness.
Yes. Yeah. Looking after thyself.
And then we have Libra, which is the balance, the scales. I relate. It's ruled by Venus. It's another aspect of Venus qualities. It has to do with cooperation, beauty, negotiation. What's the right word? Being able to be diplomatic, put other people equal, make equality, relations equal. And the unskillful is indecisions. Libras have a very hard time making decisions because they see both sides and they don't want to hurt anybody. They want to be nice. That's one of the aspects. Scorpio, very deep. I transform. It's the death birth process. It's ruled by Mars. It's also ruled by Pluto. But it has to do with changing the alchemy from death to life, or from one thing to another thing. It's the alchemical principle. So you have to go through the process, go through the deep, get to the bottom, come up with the answer. So it's constantly dealing with crisis and rebirth, but that's the way you learn. You have to go to the bottom. They're diggers, they research. They want to understand things behind the eye, behind the system, things that aren't known. So it has to do with regeneration. The unskillful is abuse of power, because a Scorpio holds a lot of power. I seek. This is the Sagittarian. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And so it's a very gregarious energy. It's exploration, adventure. I want to know, I want to expand, I want to learn. It's very active. It's a fire principle. It wants to feel alive. It wants to feel itself through feeling alive, through having experience. And the skillful application is wisdom. The unskillful is delusion. A lot of Sagittarians think they know, and they may know, but they may not listen. to other sides or to other whatever. And so that where the delusion comes in is that they may not be open, whereas Geminis are more open. They want to expand. They want to hear everything. They want to learn everything. One take on it. The Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And so this has to do with one aspect of Saturn, which has to do with I utilize, I am useful. It's practical, it's an earth sign. It has to do with I want order, I want to be in charge, I am responsible, I am capable, I am accomplished. It has to do with organization and structure and doing it frugally. Not necessarily, well, it doesn't have to be frugal. It can also be very sophisticated, but it has to do with, and it could also be privileged, but it's not necessarily flamboyant,
Are you
direct.
saying boring?
Could be boring,
I
but you know,
can say that.
I have found
I
that.
can say it because I'm a Capricorn. So.
Oh, you're not boring, Luke.
No, I'm saying I can say it because I'm a Capricorn. I can say that Capricorn energy can be a bit boring. So.
Unskillful application is the capitalism or the opportunism. But all the planets have unskillful aspects. The Aquarian is also ruled by Saturn and it's also ruled by Uranus. And this is I am different. Aquarian thinking is very different. It's out there, it's new, it's a surprise. It's seeing the world through different eyes. It's the principles of change, the principles of reform, the principles of revolution, originality. And so it has to do with creativity, it has to do with the future, and the unskillful application is rebelliousness. Good
Can
though.
I add to that?
Yes.
The original principle of Aquarius was I know, and you will find that they have a knowing, but the negative fact of that is the fact that when they think they know everything, that's the other thing. They tell everyone how to live. So that's very much an Aquarian energy. And I'm not being nasty to Aquarians, but you will find there's an element of, yeah, I already know that. And they don't have much patience with it.
Interesting. Interesting. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It is ruled by also Jupiter and by Neptune. And so it is not tangible. It is ethical or ethereal. It has to do with the imagination. It has to do with the dream, the visualization, the idea, unity. It has to do with the spark of the idea, but it doesn't necessarily have form. So it has to do with compassion. It has to do with martyr, or the unskillful is martyrdom, but it could be selfless service. It could be film. It could be water. It could be anything that has to do with the intuition or psychism or spiritual connection, connection to the divine, connection, the union to the sacred. And then, of course, it very much ties into the 12th house and the principles of the 12th house, and also to the principles of Neptune, which is it could be delusion, it could be addiction, it could be all these things, it could be fraud, all these things. But, you know, these are the qualities then that you take the quality and you attach them onto the planet, and it gives the planet more description, more personality, and more you can start to describe and understand the person better and yourself better. And so these are the basics. Now I am going to skip the aspects unless you guys want me to do them, Luke, because we're kind of behind schedule here.
I reckon we're running out of time, so I'd go past that. And aspects will sort of probably get included. You could just give a very quick overview, I reckon, because you're doing very well, Diane. But it is
We're running out of time.
Everyone's.
So basically, you have the various aspects, which again give you more information when you're reading a chart. And I was going to go over this in my next lecture. So I'll just say, you know, the 0 degrees, which is the conjunction, is the strongest because the two planets are on top of each other. The energies join together. And it's not just two separate energies, they blend together and they become one energy that comprises both of them. And it's a seed, it's a birth, it's an expression of something new that comes out of it. So that is the strongest aspect you can have in a chart. The sextile is a 60-degree aspect, and that is a supportive aspect. They work together. Not necessarily easy, but they support each other. They work together. They offer help and assistance. One planet assists the other. The quincunx, or here, we'll go to the 90-degree up here. That's the square. It's a challenging aspect. You cannot see around the corner. You don't have all the information. There is a block of some sort, something you have to overcome, something you have to work through. It's a working through aspect. But people who have squares in their chart produce and achieve more because they're always working. They never stop working. Squares are, they produce results. It's not bad to have squares. Trines is 120 degrees. It has to do with something that comes easy. It just falls in your lap, or it's a gift that you have that you were born with. It's something that just flows out of you. You don't have to think about it. It's easy. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always good. It could be something that's bad, that's very easily expressed. Okay, but that's a trine. The quincunx is a 150-degree aspect. It's more of a psychological aspect. It has to do with changing, tweaking the way you see things, changing the results, changing the understanding, veering yourself in a new direction. It indicates somewhat of a strain. And the opposition is the 180-degree aspect, which is you can see clearly across the table. It could be a confrontation, it could be an opposition, but it's definitely an awareness. And you can see eye to eye. You can and you know what you're dealing with. Okay, so that's
Yeah,
an
can I add to that just quickly, Diane? Going back to the quincunx, just very
Yes.
quickly. One of the major reasons why it has those factors to me is because quincunx signs are very unrelated to each other.
Yes.
So there's always got to be an adjustment to understand each other. So imagine Aries and Virgo, they're very different. Gemini and Scorpio, they're hugely different. So there's always having to be an adjustment because they're coming from completely different angles, literally. And so I find quincunx is a very difficult aspect to, because a lot of the time people can't, what's the word for it? They can see the issue, they don't know how to handle it.
Yes, they don't know how to handle it. And then when you have a yod, which
Yes.
is two quincunxes, it's
To one planet with a sextile between the two planets. Yeah.
yes.
So it's a bit like the poor old focal planet of the odds getting told off by these two planets that are in harmony with each other, going, what are you talking about? Where are you coming from? This is ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
nearly like that.
But it's definitely something that needs to be dealt with, and you don't know.
Yes.
It's a conundrum,
Yeah, it's like you have no choice in this one, matey. Yeah.
Right. I have three of
So-
those in my chart, by the way.
That's why you became an astrologer. You had to
I
work it
have
out.
three quincunxes. I have a grand square. I have a grand trine, and a plethora of other things. And that is exactly why I became an astrologer, to try
The
to
Diane.
figure out what the hell is going on, right?
Yeah.
We are going to skip this and skip this and this and this. Well, actually, I'm not going to skip this because I
Don't
would
skip it, because that's the radio show. People can get
Yes.
readings from you.
Yes. I would like you all to be on the radio show. It is every Friday night. We just had one tonight. It's at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we talk about the current event of the week. And then we invite 3 call-ins to be part of the show. And we look at your chart and we give you a free reading. It's basically a 5 to 10 minute reading, either on the topic or you can ask a question. But I would encourage you all to listen and or be on the show, because I would love to have you on the show.
There is a couple of examples in the community. If you go to the channel, it says Cosmic Radio Show, and you can actually listen to one if you want there, or you can go to the website and listen to it. But it's just easier to find if you go to our community, because I've already downloaded it. You don't have to go looking for it.
Yeah. But if you want to be on the show, please just email me and let me know, or text me. But email, it's Diane@dematrix.net, and we'll get you on. Sheila's been on the show.
I've been on 2.
Oh, Michelle, you've been on the show. Okay. I was gonna say we need to get you on the show, but we've
I was on talking about my health.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, readings. I do personal readings if anyone is interested. I create a calendar every year that has all of
awesome.
the significant aspects going on, which you can track and follow and use for readings, or just learn about your own, what you're experiencing through. So this is all available. If you're interested, just email me and I'll tell you how you can get one. So what I want to start doing is bringing in your charts, and we're going to spend, so it's 20 to 10. There are 5 of us. So that doesn't give us a whole lot of time unless you guys want to stay a little longer. What do you guys want to do?
Well, if
I'm
everyone
going to
else
be
is
leaving in 20 minutes.
Well, then
Oh.
Carol,
Okay.
let's do you
But
first.
don't feel like you have to do me first or that you
I
have to
am.
do me at all.
I'm going to
do
do
have
you
to do.
first. So tell me your birth information.
2/12/61,
Okay, wait. What's your last name, Carolyn?
Gaddy. You ran it. You may still have it because you
Oh,
ran it
did I
the
do it
last.
before?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I don't know if I saved it, and if I didn't save it, it's not going to easily come up. It might be in my listings. Let me see if it is. No, I didn't. Please tell me again. It'll just,
2/12/61,
okay, wait, I got to start over. All right, 2/12/61.
1612,
Okay,
and it's Grosse Point, Michigan. Gross with an E.
okay. Let's see if that goes through. Grosse Point Farms in Wayne County?
There's a lot of Grosse Points. It's just plain Grosse Point, Michigan.
In Wayne?
Yes, it's in Wayne County. They're all in Wayne County.
Okay.
Just so you know, Carolyn, when before this goes up, I will edit out this part of the video so you don't have your personal
Oh,
information.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
So what oh, I got to do this. We're going to put Carolyn up here. And now what we're going to do as a class,
Diane, is it too late for me to jump in with my birth info? You know my info, right?
I already pulled your chart. I have it
Oh,
here.
I love you. Thank you, honey.
All right, so what we're going to do as a class is we're going to read Carolyn's chart, and we're going to spend 5 to 10 minutes max on each chart. Okay, so we're going to look at the hemisphere emphasis, and so I want you all to participate. Okay, and so where would you say, now I've got other things in here besides what I talked about in my class, so I guess that's going to confuse the issue. Should I just go with it? What would you say where she has the most emphasis in her chart? Is it above the horizon or below the horizon?
Above.
So that would tell us what?
She's out there. She likes being in the public.
Yep. She's more involved in the world at large. She's more social. And then if we look at the emphasis on the right-hand side of the chart or the left-hand side of the chart, where is the emphasis?
Right.
So what does that mean?
It has to do with awareness of others. That's what I wrote down, but I can't.
Awareness of others, but also she's reaping. She's reaping the benefits of what she has sown in the past. So you'll see her receiving more than putting effort in. Although she has planets on both sides, the emphasis is on the right side. Does that make sense? It's on the setting side of the chart. Anyway, Luke, do you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, although it's a little bit deceiving, we say that she's got the emphasis on the top part of the chart, but in actual fact, there's more physical planets in the bottom. So there's 6 in the bottom and there is only 4 at the top. So there's a bit.
I'm going to change my chart options so I get rid of those extra points. So let me do that.
And I will say the introvert is more accurate. I identify with the 5 in the Enneagram.
The interesting thing is, have a look at your chart there, Carolyn. You've got a Leo rising, but you said the introvert is more accurate. Interesting, isn't it? But that's also, have a look. You've got 6 planets in the bottom part of the chart and the sun in the 8th.
I think Leo tends to get pigeonholed.
Yeah.
And that it's one of the more challenging and complex signs. It can express in a number of ways. And it all has to do with what else is going on in the chart, of course. But
Yeah, I look straight away. Where's the ruler of it? It's in the 8th house.
mhm.
So you're going to have, a strong sensitivity and sense of privacy. You know, your Mercury's in there in Pisces as well, and you're also an Aquarian. So, you know, I would look at it because I'm interpreting it from an astrology point of view. But if we and knowing astrology, but if we're talking about purely emphasis of the chart, that was straight away there was a bit of a disconnect because now you can see there's more planets in the bottom. The
Mhm.
confusion was there was a lot of asteroids in there and it looked busier. But there's
Yes.
still an emphasis to the right hand side, which was correct. So
Thank you, Luke.
that's okay.
All right, now we want to look at her Mercury. Now, first of all, you got to find the Mercury in the chart. And where is it? What house is it in?
The ninth house. No, the eighth
Eighth.
house. Eighth. Forgot its wings.
It's in the 8th house. And what sign is it in?
Pisces.
Pisces. Okay, so now how would we describe her Mercury? First of all, we want to start with the planet. And the planet is how she thinks, okay? How she communicates. And if it's in
I'm going
Pisces,
to be excused to let you guys interpret for a minute and come back.
okay. If it's in Pisces, how do you think she'll communicate? Abstractly, artistically, visionary, softly, quietly? You guys are supposed to be helping me out here.
I'm trying to go back and pull some of it out of my notes because I'm trying to remember it.
Okay.
So,
It's-
but yeah, I understand.
And it's in the 8th house. So what does that mean? What does the 8th house mean? It's a difficult house. It has to do with other people. It's a house where she has to make revisions. She may not understand things easily from the other person's point of view. She may have to make compromises or change her thinking or sacrifice herself in some way for other people. Would these things be true, Carolyn?
Yeah, yes, very much so.
It's also the 8th house is the metaphysical house. She's very interested in psychology and knowing what's behind the eye. She's most likely very intuitive because it's in Pisces, and she can understand the occult world because of where it's placed. She can instinctively understand people, and they may not understand that she can understand them. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you want to look at its aspects to other planets. Now, we may not have time to get into the aspects because we don't have a whole lot of time. But if you look around the chart and if you see anything else at 9 degrees, 8, 9, or 10 degrees in the chart, do you see anything?
Yeah, 10 degrees.
10 degrees is the Venus. Now, we haven't really, we may not want to get into the aspects because I didn't go over a 30-degree aspect with you guys. But that's another aspect of adjustment. And then she's also got a conjunction with the South Node, and that means that her gifts of understanding and her intuitive gifts have come over from the past. She was born with them from a previous life, or she's absorbed them in the past from others. And so we're getting into things I didn't teach you, so we may not want to go into aspects right now. All right, next I'm going to say Venus, okay? So where is her Venus? Did we lose somebody?
Ninth
Luke,
house.
Luke stepped out for a minute.
No, there was somebody else.
Oh, yeah, she left a while back.
Oh, okay. Ninth house, and what is it in?
Uh, it's in Pisces.
No, her Venus is in Aries, right here. This is her Venus, and this is in Aries.
Oh, okay. So it goes through there. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the Mercury, and it's in Pisces. I probably should have taught you that. I didn't teach you that. I apologize.
Well, what I always get confused about is when you see the Pisces and you see the Taurus up on the outer circle, when it hits 0 degrees, where within the house, when it transfers from Pisces to Taurus, or from Pisces to Aries, you have to sort of like figure out where that line is. And I guess with the 0, 0, that helps us know where it's at.
Well, no. when you see this on the cusp, this is called the house cusp. Okay.
Yeah,
And so Pisces rules this whole house. And
Okay.
the ruler of Pisces is Jupiter and Neptune. So, and that's beyond this class, but then you're going to look at your Jupiter in the chart. So actually, this Jupiter here rules this whole house, but that's more than you need to know right now.
okay.
What you
So,
need to
but I
know
always
is
assumed that when it was in that house, so now I learned something. That it's that outer thing doesn't have to do with, you have to look at the actual symbol for Venus and see it's 10 degrees and know that it's not 10 degrees Pisces, it's 10 degrees
Aries and
Aries.
Yeah, the
zero
Aries sign is really small, but the
Oh,
symbol is always in each
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
All right. I get it now.
Okay. So her Venus, which means how she attracts things, how she bonds with people, how she loves people. Venus is how you relate with people, and it's in Aries. So, what would that tell us? Being in Aries. Aries is an aggressive, it's initiative, it's not afraid, it'll move forward, it'll go after what it wants. So she's not afraid to initiate things she wants or to try to relate with, attract. She goes after what she wants with her Venus. She attracts things. Yes, Carolyn?
That one doesn't that doesn't play out like that for me.
I mean,
No,
I
not
could take
really.
it I could take it further because then you follow it to Mars, and Mars is in Cancer, and actually Mars in Cancer would be the opposite of what I just said.
Mm.
But typically, that is the energy of Mars. But since her Mars, because that's the way you do things, you follow it to the ruler. But Mars in Cancer actually has a sensitivity and double thinks how it acts, or it might do things because it has to do things, but it might not emotionally want to do things. That's a Mars in Cancer. It might do things out of guilt, or it might do things out of responsibility, or it might do things because it has to, or because it's emotionally obligated to, but it might not want to. That's a Mars in Cancer. So it's kind of conflicted, and that Mars energy rules this Aries, so that may be why it didn't relate. Does that make more sense?
It does. Another thing I say, I do go for what I want in some ninth house themes, like learning,
Yeah,
education, liking to learn about other cultures,
yes,
things like
ninth
that.
house things. You would go
Nice.
after what you love,
Mhm.
because Venus is what you love, what you desire, what you value. And ninth house things would be learning, teaching, but there's many things because then you've got the Pisces, so it could be spiritual, it could be religious, it could be many different things worldwide. And then her Mars, we already talked about her Mars. Her Mars is in Cancer. And I'm not going to cover aspects because we just don't have the time. But do you want to say anything, Carolyn? I'm going to say to you
No,
that with this 0 degrees Cancer, your Mars is in 0 degrees Cancer. That Neptune Saturn conjunction coming up is going to square that right here. So I think you're going to be challenged to make strides in your education, go back to school, start something new, planning your future. I think you're going to be challenged. You probably are already doing it now.
yeah, it's a time of change.
Yeah, but that's an exact square. And it could be global, it could be international that you get involved in, because that's the world point.
Diane, does she have, so you said it's an exact square, but is it with a 10-degree orb?
The exact square is with the upcoming
Saturn, Neptune.
transits.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
we have a Saturn Neptune conjunction coming up. Actually, the Neptune's already in Aries. Saturn's going to be in it on the 24th, but then the actual conjunction is next year. But they're dancing around it right now. But all your efforts are going to be in the ninth house.
You put your right foot in, you take your right foot out for the next almost a year before they finally meet up.
Yeah.
But we've also got to understand that that whole Mars position there, that was also being, I mean, it's not exactly triggered, but that when Mars and Pluto had its opposition retrograde, it was, forming a by degree aspect to it. Different. I'm actually in the wrong sign, but, it was in, but I still think that would have had an impact.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Carolyn, we are finished with you.
Lots of oppositions in your chart there. So.
Well, she
Mhm.
does. Yeah. See, these are the lines of opposition. So these are the 180-degree aspects in her chart. First of all, she's got Pluto, a conjunction with Pluto in the North Node, but we didn't go over North Node, so you guys may not know what that means. And then, but she's got a Pluto opposing Mercury in the money houses, which actually could be quite nice for you. Pluto and Mercury in the money houses could be nice. What do you think, Luke?
Depends how it plays out. But I would say, yes, it's going to bring money into the, Pluto in the second house often represents one way or the other. It depends whether the lesson, and I'd have to look at a bit more, whether the lesson is about gaining money or losing money. That's sort of I find that with Pluto. It depends whether it takes it away or whether it's going to give you, which, like some people, the example might be people who have lived poor all their life and all of a sudden they win lotto. And then it completely turns their world upside down. And then they lose all their money again because they went and spent it or something like that. You've heard the stories about it. And then, in the meantime, it changed their whole lives. That can be a Pluto type second house, eighth house relationship.
Mm-hmm. It could be. It could be.
I'm not saying that's the case for you, Carolyn. I'm just sort of.
No.
No, I'm thinking it's the opposite. I'm thinking she's
Yeah.
going to accrue money.
I was just wondering how the Leo ascendant affects her chart. I mean, what would you say about the Leo ascendant?
I love the way Jody talked about the ascendant along with the moon and the sun. And she says, imagine those three were in the elevator. Who gets along and who's the odd man out? And clearly Leo's the odd man out in that triad.
Between the moon in
Between
Capricorn and
yeah.
the Aquarius opposition. But
Yeah.
you're also a sun opposition Uranus. So,
Mhm.
and in mutual reception with each other.
Right.
So there's a strong relationship there. But I think with the really colors that Leo rising, which is not and I think you admitted to that, Carolyn, it's not a typical Leo rising or Leo being a little bit misunderstood. But I really think that what colors that is the fact your experience of your Leo is the fact your sun's in the eighth house, which is,
Mhm.
let's give it a Scorpio flavor, opposing Uranus, which is an Aquarius flavor, which are really different to Leo. And to some degree, Leo likes to be out there, but Scorpio and Aquarius don't. In actual
Mhm.
fact, Aquarius would be happy to go off into nature and never come back. So, and Scorpio just goes, no, I've got to keep everything private to myself because I don't want anyone to hurt me. So it's a very different to the Leo. So you're right. And then the moon in Capricorn, wow. So you got someone else with a moon that's also a little bit protective, self-critical,
Mhm.
looks after itself, doesn't want to give too much away. So yes, you're right. That it's not
One thing I'll share about Leo is because I feel like your chart will communicate with you at particular times
Mhm.
and give you certain lessons. And last year I got my Leo lesson because I couldn't figure out how is this Leo showing up in my life. A lower expression of Leo can be entitlement. And that really came out last year. So it's like, okay, now you need to pay attention to this. Like now I recognize where it showed up in different times in my life and I can avoid expressing it in the ways that I used to.
Okay.
So that's another facet of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we
Does
good?
does that remotely answer your question, Sheila? Was it you that asked the question? Or who asked the question about
It
how's
was
Sheila.
it was Sheila.
Sheila did. So actually, you've got Pluto coming up to oppose that soon. I would think you're going to start to have, if you don't have already, powerful players coming into your life that you're contracted with or you're in alignment with, agreement with, and you're going to have to stand up for yourself. And it's very difficult. And you're going
The
to have
other person, I forget her name that left. She was here initially. She, in the community, she noted that Pluto's coming up on her descendant as well.
You mean
Um,
Cheryl was here before?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She shared the Pluto poem,
Yeah.
but she has that same aspect coming up as well.
Mm.
Which ultimately it's going to really make you realize who you are and the strength of who you are and what you have to offer people. And that's going to really activate that Pluto on the North Node. You're gonna become
And I suppose if I gave any advice, if that's the right word for it, I don't know if it is, be strong to your values. Because what it's going to do is where that second house, Pluto, is it's going to transform what's important and what's not and what your values are.
And it's been hitting all this stuff. I've been dancing with Pluto since 2018.
Yeah, look at all that stuff.
And,
Yeah,
and
you had a Pluto moon conjunction and the rest.
yeah. So this is like the last hurrah for a while.
well, not for a while.
Pluto loves us. No.
All right, now we're gonna do Michelle, and then we'll do Sheila. But Luke, are you okay if we don't do you, or you want to do you?
Sure, I don't mind.
Well, I don't mind either. It's just I don't know how long everyone wants to hang out. We could do both. We'll see how it goes.
There we go.
Okay, so here's Michelle. And so let's look at her hemisphere emphasis. Do we have more planets at the top or at the bottom of the chart?
At the top?
Yes, there are 4 at the bottom, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the top. We won't count the nodes. So she's pretty balanced, but there's a little more on the outside, on the upper half of the chart, which would mean that she's not afraid to be out in the limelight in the public and interact in the world. She's involved. And then if you look at the right side and the left side of the chart, what does she have more of?
The left.
More on the left. Okay, so that would mean that she's doing her work this lifetime. She's sowing seeds, she's creating new experiences, she's tilling the soil, so to speak, in this life, more so than receiving the benefits of it. Although she does receive the benefits, but it's more of tilling the soil. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then we're going to look at her planet and we want to focus on Mercury. So where is Mercury in her chart, guys? Who's playing with me?
12th house Virgo.
Yes, very good. Her Mercury is in the 12th house and it's in Virgo. So first of all, what would that tell us about Mercury being in the 12th house? What would that tell us? She's quiet.
I would think, yeah, with Virgo also, I would think that she'd be careful with her words
She
or
would be,
precise.
yes.
She's just not going to spew verbiage.
She thinks before she speaks. She's accurate with her words, but she doesn't share them with everybody. She's 12th house and she can hold secrets. So if you tell her something, she won't be a gossip. Is that true, Michelle?
Oh, yeah.
But Mercury in Virgo, what else would that tell us? She'd be very analytical. She'd be good with doing research, with doing data, skill sets, anything that has to do with organization, plotting things. She'd be good with her hands. 12th house symbolizes not only it's removed from people, so she might work off on her own somewhere where she's doing analytical critical skills, could be in a hospital, could be in a prison, could be in an institution. It could just be that she's removed in a situation where she's off by herself somewhere. Does that fit you, Michelle?
Yeah, I do the best when I can work on my own without interruptions. And I love doing bookkeeping work or analyzing data, trying to take information and, sort it out so that it's accurate. I love fixing databases that are a mess and going in and getting the data all corrected. And I could sit and do that for hours. I love it.
Good, 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 good.
Diane, just jumping in there because
Yes.
that's definitely the Mercury, but have a look at that T-square to the moon in Gemini from Pluto and Jupiter. How much of an emphasis do you think that might have on that exact task for example as well?
21.
So we're talking Jupiter, Pluto, which is the research and expansion on, and the moon's in Gemini, ruled by the Mercury.
The moon's in Gemini, ruled by the Mercury, and then you've got also the
Pluto in Virgo, ruled by the
yes.
Mercury.
That's a
yes.
little wide, isn't it?
Well, the moon would be
Not
at
too
the
bad.
midpoint. You know, the midpoint between the Mercury and the Pluto would be.
Oh, I'm not thinking about Mercury. I'm talking about the moon squaring Pluto and opposite Jupiter in itself without the Mercury.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, guys.
Well, I would say that you would be challenged actually a lot on what to say, how to say it, and what side to take with that moon, because you know the moon in Gemini, there's two sides to the story, or you might see two stories. It's in the ninth house, which means there's a lot of learning that wants to be done, and you crave knowledge, you crave to understand. But with that Pluto opposite Jupiter, especially that Pluto's conjunct Uranus, wide conjunction, you're dealing with change all the time. And you want to be creative and you want to lift people up, yet you're dealing with people, groups, organizations that are changing all the time. The people are changing, the players are changing, the rules are changing. And this could be very frustrating to you. So you actually prefer to be by yourself.
Yeah, I do.
Does that make sense though? Did that?
Oh, I mean, it definitely is me. I don't like change, although there's times I crave change, but I don't like when the change is not something I have control over when it comes from outside sources. When I'm really have a focus on what I want to accomplish and be able to do something. When I have all these outside interferences, it becomes very challenging, anxiety stricken kind of feeling for me.
Because
So I find working alone, even working at home, I do a lot better because it's quiet. You know, I live alone now, and so that's made a huge difference. And so,
but you don't like to be sloppy,
no, I definitely like things neat, orderly.
and you like to be right, you know.
Yeah,
Or,
not
or
real
to write
comfortable.
or to write things, I would say, as in like to make them right.
Yeah, I like things to be in order or correct or yeah, whatever like that. And if I've worked hard on something and I feel it's right and somebody comes along and just says, "What is that junk?" or whatever, it hurts me. And I think that probably has something to do with my Mars, but I don't know for sure.
Oh my God, she's got the same Mars. Look at her.
I
I
know.
know.
I know when I saw hers, I thought, yeah, I got the same Mars.
Oh, that's funny.
Hang on. And
Yeah.
here we have Carolyn, who is a very strong Uranus Sun opposition. And here we have Michelle with a very strong Sun Uranus conjunction.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
mm.
Did you want to add anything to that, Luke? To the T-square?
No, I'm quite happy hearing what you're saying. I'm just throwing my bit in here and there.
So her Venus, where is her Venus?
First house.
And
Yeah,
that's nice. That's nice. That's a very
great
nice
spot.
Venus.
Yeah, Ascendant and Venus in Libra.
So it's right on the ascendant. People see you, people like you. You're very friendly. You stand up for people. You wear your kindness on your sleeve, let's put it that way. And that's a very nice Venus. Now, if we want, I wasn't getting into the aspects, but we could get into the aspects. Actually, you've got a Venus trining the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, I think that people would feel comfortable putting you in charge of growth aspects in relationship to organizations, but you also you're very happy when you can grow, learn, teach, be involved, travel, anything that's growth related would make your
You seem
heart.
to have lost you, Diane.
You lost me?
It's like a sound. No, you've gone muted for some reason.
Oh, did
Can
I?
everyone else hear her?
I can
I
still
can
hear
hear.
her.
That's better. I
Okay.
couldn't hear it for a minute.
Oh,
Maybe it was
sorry.
my internet connection. Sorry.
No, I think that's a very nice combination. People like you, and actually, I think that you would get involved in a lot of things that are good for you to grow. Growth opportunities would come easily to you, and you wouldn't be afraid to ask for them. Although it works with that Mercury, you know when to be quiet, and typically you're very approachable. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I'm very easy to approach, except for if I have too much on my plate, then I become like,
Yeah.
get away, then I push back.
Mhm.
And I have a tendency to do that, take on too much and then have to push back again. So learning the balance is
And I think that's where that Moon T-square comes in, because that Jupiter-Pluto will always throw you a lot of stuff to do.
Yes, it
Mm.
will.
And so if you get overwhelmed, it's a bit like that moon in Gemini. I'm looking for how you have two sides, this private side and this very social public side. And you probably switch between that is what I'm seeing with that Venus there. Now, Venus in Libra on the ascendant is a great spot to have it. It means that you shouldn't have to want for anything in your life. It's a bit like saying I might not have everything that I want, but I'll always be surrounded by what I need.
And that's
Venus will bring
true.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I always have my needs met, but not
Yeah.
maybe everything I want.
Yeah.
But I've come to learn to appreciate what I have while at the same time still wanting to grow and get more. And
Yeah.
Very good. And her Mars,
She's my Mars twin.
yes,
yeah,
yes, we
Yes.
she
are.
is.
Well, Carolyn,
My
we were
Mars
just
Out of
twin.
bounds.
Carolyn, we were just saying, and not only a Mars twin, but you're a Sun Uranus opposition, and she's a Sun Uranus conjunction. It's very interesting to look at how close both of those are.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's funny.
Mm.
But so your focus for the next 36 years is going to be on growth and learning about the world, getting involved in the world, and also your health. You're going to be focusing a lot on your health.
Yeah.
But you're going to be learning about it, because you may not be getting the information that you want, and you may have surprise things come in too, because that conjunction is going to be opposing.
No, it's not.
No,
It'll be
it's-
quincunxing that Uranus.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
And it will be squaring that Mars, though. That's the main issue.
It's going to be squaring the Mars. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be squaring the Mars head on.
What's going to square Mars?
Saturn Neptune conjunction
That Saturn Neptune conjunction, because all
from your
all the
house of health.
emphasis.
So yeah.
Remember when I said everything is Aries, Aries, Aries at the beginning of this lecture?
Yeah, right.
Because that's where all the energy is right now. It's all about new beginnings. You're going to have something new come into your sixth house that's going to be launched. It's been launched. It's been going on already. And I know you're having health challenges, but that Mars, it's going to kick in that Mars, which I think you're going to start exploring, reading, learning about how to tackle your health challenges. It's going to be a square though. So it's like there's blocks you don't understand. It's a 0 degrees. So you're going to have to work through it. There's actually no one that can tell you or give you the information because it's a 0 degrees. You're going to be exploring, pioneering on your own. You want to add to that, Luke?
I think you summed it up. The only thing I would say is during this process, Michelle, with Neptune conjunct the Saturn, the hardest part will be what Diane said, diagnosis. Neptune is often something that can't be diagnosed, or someone doesn't know what's going on, and there doesn't seem to be anything that shows up. The other thing with Neptune is sometimes there are miraculous cures or things outside of the normal scope, because this is nearly like, to me, if this was a health thing and I'm looking at Saturn Neptune, I'd be saying you've got a traditional method, which is your Saturn, and Neptune, which is a spiritual, basically alternative method. And they're coming together to join and say, maybe look at things that are outside the box or something you would not normally look at. And there your answers might be in those areas, but it will only reveal it to you over time. Once this transit goes through, like Diane said, you're going to have to go through the researching yourself to find out what the answers are, and it might be some trial and error, and it will be something generally that you look not where you think you have to look, that it'll be coming from.
Okay. And that
So it's a
makes
bit like-
sense because that's sort of what I've had to do a good part of my life, where I was sick and didn't know why. And then maybe 12, 15 years later, they said, oh, well, this is what it is. And then it makes
Yeah.
more sense. But in the meantime, I've had to try to figure out my own body to say, well, I know I can't eat this, or I know I can't overexert here, and try to know that certain exercise is worse for me than others, and just sort of
Yeah.
make up my own
The
plan.
the other thing is be mindful of overstrain of things like your muscles, because when you got that Saturn Neptune to the Mars, it's sort of trying to, in a way, tighten it up and restrict it, or fluid. If you've got joint issues, for example, fluid on your joints and things like that, which might be, I look at it and go, the classic would be fluid on your knees, or other sorts of, because that's the Saturn and Neptune together, things like that, or causing some sort of muscular or joint pain and that type of thing. If that's the case, you may have to look at alternative ways. But I'm not the doctor, but
Right.
this could be something you could explore in detail with a good astrologer, and sort of work through some of those things to give you some perspective. But I'd be looking at different methods of dealing with certain things. I don't know what the health issue is, but I'm just sort of seeing Saturn Neptune will be, Saturn to me with Mars is a bit like driving the car with the brakes on.
Okay.
So it's like you're trying to move forward, but someone's got the handbrake still on.
Right.
And Neptune is going, hang on a minute, but you're in the wet. So you can't really do that, because you go and take the corner, you'll slide out. You just got to be careful. You don't know where you're going. Something's going to come out of the blue. I'm not just making that up, but that's sort of how it feels. Yeah. Anyway,
The image
I'll
I
leave it
get is
there.
hydroplaning.
What's that?
The image I get is hydroplaning when there's flooding conditions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
But that Saturn Neptune is also going to be quincunx to her natal Neptune.
A little bit further down it will be, yeah. Oh, by house position, yes. Depending on, this is the thing, it depends on what astrology chart you're using, whether it's whole signs, whether it's Placidus. Is this Placidus? This is Placidus.
This
But
is
still, though, her Neptune's at 0 degrees, and then
On Neptune's at
Neptune-
10.
It's 10.
You're thinking Uranus at 0 degrees.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm okay. Sorry.
That's okay. So if you think about it, you're dead right. That Saturn and Neptune have been coming up, making a quincunx to the Sun and Uranus.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. So I look at that straight away and go, is the health conditions related to circulation of the blood or heart issues as well? Because those things are straight away, Sun, Uranus together, are very much around that type of thing. Or whether it's an autoimmune response to something, those sorts of things, because Uranus is
that's where it
antibodies.
seems to be going, autoimmune, but but what is it? What kind of autoimmune? I mean,
Yeah,
that's where
okay.
it seems to be pointing, but there's no answer of what is that autoimmune, but the symptoms are autoimmune.
Can I make a suggestion? And I'm just going to throw it out there.
Sure.
Go and find yourself a NAET practitioner.
A Nate?
NAET practitioner. Now, what it is, it's a combination of kinesiology, homeopathics, tapping, and other sorts of things, which is very alternative. But what it does is it clears your spirit self, which is the Neptune with your Saturn, your spirit self of any forms of, what's the word for it? You could call them allergies or reactions to certain things, everything from sugars to sulfur to you name it. And you go through a process. And the first thing they start with is your body balance function, BBF. And therefore they realign you. I do it, and it's the only thing that's cured me from a lot of allergies. And I call it my hocus pocus because it doesn't make any physical sense to a standard medical doctor, but it's the only thing that's ever worked. And I would just suggest that maybe if you find one, I know, whereabouts are you based, Michelle?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, you're in Cleveland. Okay. I'm not sure. I haven't looked there, but I remember looking one day just to see how many NAET practitioners were in New York, and I thought about 40 of them. It's actually a technique it's Ayurvedic, and it's come out of India, but it works very, very well. So I would go to someone like that. That would be my recommendation. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But what it will do is if there's something in your spirit that's affecting your physical self, it'll clear it. And that's what I see as the Neptune Saturn, maybe the process of clearing all of those things.
Okay. Yeah,
Right?
that makes,
NAET. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Very cool.
I'll leave it at that.
All right, we're going to look at Sheila.
And Michelle, if you do, let me know how you go.
Oh, sure.
I'd like
How did
to
you
know.
spell that? How did
Yeah.
you spell that, Luke?
NAET. Let me just see if
I
I can.
actually I'm at the website right now. And
Oh.
yeah, and looking, there are a couple, I don't know how close you are to Cleveland.
I'm like, I don't know, 20 miles.
Okay. It looks like there's 2 practitioners in Cleveland, in the Cleveland area.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to, yeah, I'll have to go out there and look then to see who they are and where they're located. And
Here you go. I'm just going to share a link to the Find a Practitioner page in the
Okay.
chat. So
Very good. We'll get you
One
healed.
is a licensed massage therapist, and the
others,
some type of RN, APRN.
APRN. What's an APRN?
An RN is a
Or a
nurse,
Vedic
and possibly. But anyway, there's 2 things close to you.
okay, good.
All right. Sheila. All right. Where are the majority of her planets? She's got 3 above the horizon, and she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 below the horizon. Now, this is funny because I know Sheila, and she's very out there. Sheila, you have to open your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I've
Okay.
had so many interruptions tonight, Diane. You can tell. And I apologize to the group, but okay.
No, but by looking at your hemisphere emphasis, you have the majority of your planets underneath the horizon. Yet I know that you are very social and engaging and out in the public. So how would you define that?
Can I jump in for 1 second? The
Yes, please.
APRN is an Advanced Practitioner Registered Nurse.
Yeah, that's what I found. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So it's somebody who's got a master's. So I'd probably go to that person over the massage therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually I would too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, Diane. Let's jump back in.
Okay.
I'm a pain. I know. Sorry.
No, you're not. So anyway, the majority of her planetary emphasis is under the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would indicate that she is more quiet, reserved, thoughtful, introspective, innately, possibly, but I know her in a different way.
Can I ask Sheila if she was like that as a child and evolved into being more sociable?
You know, actually, I've been pretty outgoing my whole life and I love people. I'm very much, even though I have a Scorpio sun, I'm very saggy.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
I'd say
very
that too.
optimistic.
Mm-hmm. So that's a confusing, but you do, I think you would be actually comfortable just being on your own doing your work,
Wow.
but this would indicate, if you look at the hemisphere emphasis left or right, you've got most of your planets on the left side, which would also indicate that you're sowing a lot of seeds, you're doing a lot of due diligence, and really putting your pedal to the metal. Although you get a lot of surprises because your Uranus and your North Node are right at the top on the right side of the chart. So I would say
Mhm.
that you do get rewarded for the work that you do, but the majority of the time you're doing the work.
Oh,
But
yeah,
you
that
do
is
get
for sure.
prizes, and when you do get rewarded, it's nice. I would think it would be nice, very rewarding. Would you agree, Luke? Do you see anything else?
Oh yeah. I would say this is a chart where you see somebody who might have, like the Neptune in the first house, but it's in Libra, so it's in an outgoing sign. But those, all your personal planets, minus your moon and the sun, are all in the third house. So it likes to communicate, likes to be out there, likes to be, communicating with people, and that Sun Jupiter, even though you're a Scorpio, is all, yeah, it's all about, being outgoing. Like you said, you feel more saggy. The ruler of the ascendant being Mercury in Sag, so therefore you've got this strong outgoing personality. I think the dichotomy is that Uranus up there on the midheaven and the Neptune in the first house goes, I'm quite happy working on my own, like you said, Diane. But at the same time, I'm quite happy with people. Yeah, a true chameleon in some way.
Oh, I think I really am a chameleon.
Yeah.
I
And maybe
really
even
think
have
so.
living extremes, because that Uranus up there is like, you might go flat out one way working with people and go, you know what, I need time out. And that's it. And you go off into your little cave for a while and go, I don't want to know anyone for a while, and that's it. And then I come back out again when I feel like it. So are you laughing, Diane?
I think she's done that for the last, what, 6, 7 years now?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
She's been in seclusion.
yes.
So we're very glad to have you here tonight.
Oh, thank you, Diane. I really appreciate it. Well, you know what? It's my greatest honor, but my mom lives with me. Well, my husband died sadly, heartbreakingly. He died very, very suddenly of cancer. But I mean, it just came over him like that. But my mom's been living with me for 12 years. And so I really have to honor. I mean, it's my greatest privilege to take good care of my mom, but it like restricts me, but that's okay. It's all in the game. That's
Well,
my moon Pisces, I
there's your
like being
moon
in
and that
service.
Neptune in the first. Oh my God.
Mhm.
Tell me about that.
Virgo rising, service to others.
Service.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean
And-
Neptune and
and-
Libra is service to others as well?
Oh yeah. What I was looking at with that Neptune in the first and the Uranus on the midheaven is, what is it that you had to serve or give up for others? And you just said it.
Oh,
If you look
okay.
at it, it's the ruler of your moon.
Oh,
One
yeah.
of the
And
rulers.
also I have 2 daughters and they're my life and they're my all and my everything. And believe me, I'm knocking my brains out to be the biggest help as possible that I could possibly ever be to my children. And I'm so lucky because we just have a very small family, like of just the two daughters, and then my one daughter's married, my other daughter isn't. But it's just like we're so close and we're mighty, even though we're
Can I
tiny.
ask the question, Sheila? Do your daughters live close by or away from you?
Oh, my one daughter lives in Arizona. When she was little, she always used to tell me she was going to buy the house right next door to me. So to prove it, she moved first of all to California after she graduated from college, and then she got a transfer, and now she lives in Arizona. And then
Where
my
do you
other daughter lives in Strongsville, which is pretty close to me, a half hour away.
The only reason I ask is because that your Venus is retrograde in Sag, and I wanted to know whether that took them away from it. The Sag would normally be like, your kids are up and they're gone. See ya.
Oh, well, I've always
The
I'll tell
retrograde
you
is
how it plays out is that I've given my kids freedom to be who they are. Could that be it?
yes, absolutely, 100%.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally not a controlling mom, which is probably why we're so close.
Yes,
Why did you associate that with her children, Luke?
Third house.
Venus rules your daughters. That's all.
Oh, Venus of the daughters. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, and then I saw it conjunct Mercury, and I thought, sometimes I go, well, little things like, are they twins? Were they twin daughters? That sort of thing. Not necessarily, but it sometimes works that way. But I just see, and the fact that Venus is conjunct Mars, you're going to have very independent daughters, and they're
Very
going to be
independent.
thinking for themselves. There's a number of things there. Yeah. But do you have siblings, brothers and sisters?
I have a brother. He lives in Toledo.
And how is your relationship with him?
Oh, I love my brother dearly. I love
Yeah.
him so much.
Well, that's also in that third house of siblings with the Venus conjunct the Mars.
Yeah.
So
I
the
mean,
love
it's
of the
nice.
brother. It's
It's
nice.
nice.
You've actually got quite a lovely chart there, really.
Yeah, it's nice
Yeah.
energy.
Hmm.
So if we look at her Mercury, her Mercury's in Sag. So anyone want to jump in on that? What's a Mercury in Sag? What does she like to talk about? What does she think about? How does she express how does she communicate?
Everyone else answer that one, because I've got a Mercury in Sag too, so I might get something out of it.
Everyone's gone quiet on me.
Lydia's going like this.
Oh, hi, Lydia. So, she would be a very positive person, optimistic, future oriented, wants to learn, wants to know, wants wisdom, a seeker. That would be
Philosophical.
Philosopher. That was my
Yeah.
first thought.
a philosophy, and then, and then if you
True,
look
true,
at her
true.
Jupiter, her Jupiter is in Scorpio in the second house. So she would get involved in money.
I was about to say on the third house, ruling the second. Did you work in sales?
Can
or
you hold
something,
on just a
Sheila?
minute? I'll be right up, mommy. They're doing my chart right now. Okay,
Sheila,
good.
did you work in sales or something?
Well, I did sell pampered chef, taught cooking.
Okay,
Heard
taught
of
cooking.
pampered
There you
chef,
go.
yeah.
There's the teaching part.
Yeah.
Sales or beauty or something along those lines.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Although the cooking could have something to do with the Venus. That's the baking and the
And
celebration.
the moon. Both
Yeah.
of them are squaring the moon.
Mhm.
So yes, totally.
And then okay, so she's got a nice conjunction going on down there, and then with the Venus is in Sag too. So her Venus would also be, similar. I could see her getting involved in marketing, public relations, advertising, sales, communication,
And teaching, like she said.
teaching.
Especially teaching, because third house, elementary schools.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She'd be very good with working with people, encouraging people, networking, traveling. But it would all be work related, I think, of some sort, income producing, for income, for, or in order to try to build income, make income, grow, in order to grow income. I don't know, all those things. Investments.
Well, right now I'm the co-chair of our investment group in Cleveland, and I'm taking these really wonderful, but they're grueling. I mean, hard, much harder that it's harder than anything I ever thought I'd accomplish, to teach people about investing and to teach them how you can, look at stocks and really analyze.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have analysis paralysis. And then I'm in charge of an educational meeting, which is going to be for our group in July 10th. And there's so much work that I'm doing in regards to it. And I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of teaching. So that's interesting that you said it had to do with money, Diane.
Because it all leads to that. And actually having a Jupiter in the second house is quite nice.
Yeah, squaring very tightly that Saturn in the 11th.
Now, why would that be good? Why would that be? I wanted to ask you what you thought about Saturn squaring my Jupiter.
Well, you're a hard worker, but what your work produces results, typically financial results, or that Jupiter conjoining the sun is nice in the second house. You work hard, but I think that you benefit from what you produce, what you create.
Yeah.
True.
I would say, Sheila, have you ever had or gone through stages where you've had big gains and then all of a sudden you've had a big loss and you've had to recoup in your
Well,
life?
yes, but more than that, it's that like when my kids were in college and high school, because my one daughter had 5 years of Jesuit education, so that was it was expensive, but I didn't really care because I didn't want my kids to get out of college and have a ton of debt. I wanted them to be able to relax and focus on their careers. So both of them, and they went to an all-girls Catholic high school. And so that was expensive. It was, and college, I felt like we were buying a brand new car every year. So I did everything so during those years, and that would be like, well, 9 years plus the the high school, which was very expensive also. So at that point in time, my Jupiter conjunct the sun, and then because of the square of like the Saturn Pluto, because I feel like they both go in with my Saturn Pluto, it was like I felt like I had tremendous debt. But then as soon as that was over, our house got paid off, and now I'm investing a lot. So it's all cool.
Yeah. That's exactly the sort of thing. You just gave us the answer, what I was looking for. The big adjustment was that you just said you dedicated, and like Diane said, you work hard, but eventually your efforts pay off. But when you're going through that working hard, and you just gave us the example, buying a new car every year, the equivalent of just to get your kids through school, is but the difference is that Sun Jupiter meant you were able to earn it to do it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. Really, when you put your mind to something, you really put your all into it. With that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, you can work very intensely, which is nice. But anyway, we were focusing on the Venus.
Oh, okay, get back to that.
Sorry.
And then her Mars in Scorpio. Okay, let's talk about that. First of all, she's got a Mars in Scorpio. Who wants to tell me the energy behind that Mars? Very intense, very driven, very intuitive, compulsive, driven. Did I say that already?
In rulership.
It's in rulership, so it's very strong. It's very secure. It's very confident. And again, when you follow that back to the Pluto-Saturn conjunction in Leo, you are very confident, and you can be creative in a very intense way, and you can be very persistent with that energy. But
Mars is a final dispositor in her chart too, so it's pretty powerfully placed.
Yeah. It's bossing around that lovely Venus and Mercury in that house too, because it's the house ruled by Scorpio. So it's telling them what to do. Come on, use your charm, use your intelligence, use your smartness. Let's get out there and do it. Let's get out of bed every morning and go to work. Come on, get going, get going. It's bossing them around. That's what I think.
Yeah. Taking charge. Ultimately, to transform or improve, because with all that Sag there, it's for improvement, it's for learning, or it's for advancement, or it's for growth, or it's for education. So it's all good stuff here, I see. But you've got a lot of squares, a lot of square energy.
Yeah, I was just noticing that too. Yeah.
But squares are not bad. It's just work, hard work, applied work. And that's actually typically where you have squares in your chart is the work you will do in your life for your career. It's the work, not necessarily bad. So I think we could be done unless shall we take a look at Luke's chart?
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay.
All right.
I'm listening.
Lydia's in the background. That's all right. I'll put it on mute. No, I'm only kidding.
Copy. All right. Very good. Boy, look at that T-square.
I'll be
Fun.
right back. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
No, you guys.
So hemisphere emphasis, does he have more planets at the top of his chart or at the bottom of his chart?
I mean, it's almost, you'd have to almost call it even.
Is he?
But do you ever factor in the fact of whether a hemisphere is dominated by personal planets or outer planets?
I don't. Do you, Luke?
Not necessarily, no. I just look at where they're strong and where they're not, which ones work well, which ones don't. In this instance, I would probably look at this and go, it's fairly balanced, like you said, but where's the emphasis? No, I've got 5 below and 5 above. But then have a look, you've got 7 planets on the left and 3 on the right. And there's where where you've really got the drive.
So he's got 7 on the left, which would indicate what?
He's making things happen.
He's
So
making
he's
things
positive.
happen. He's sowing
Positive.
seeds. He's building schools.
Optimistic.
But so he is doing his due diligence, but it does pay off. He's got Jupiter in the 9th house on the right side. He's got Saturn on the right side. He's got the moon and the north node. So he will see results from his efforts, but he's putting in a lot of more effort than payoffs. But you don't know how that's all going to play out. But for the most part, most of the planets are on the left side. Would you agree, Luke?
Yeah, I think it's very much about learning lessons first, and then things come from the lessons. There's a strong, weird sort of karmic stuff that goes on in there. I've got to
You're more extroverted too.
People don't realize, but there's a very strong mystic rectangle in the chart. There's a couple of T-squares. There's a lot of stuff. But those who don't know what a mystic rectangle is, mine are generational planets. So Uranus, Pluto opposing Saturn. Chiron is conjunct Saturn. That you can't see that.
Oh,
And then you've got a sextile to Neptune from Uranus, Pluto, which is generational. But the only personal planet getting hit by all that is the moon over there in Taurus. Now, if you have another look at the chart, it's an intercepted sign, that moon, Neptune. And that moon, if anyone is interested to know about fixed stars, sits directly on Algol.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yes, it does. How do you,
so
so
there's
tell us about that.
Which part do you want to know?
Doesn't make life easy, does it?
It basically means, in essence, I've had to learn a very hard. I was born into a life with a very hard lesson to do with family, to do with health. So I was born a celiac. Well, I wasn't born a celiac. I became a celiac. I got a lot of allergy stuff. That's what I was talking about before, which is the Neptune. I did things like so just so everyone knows what that Algol is, I know what it is because I've realized later, my mum was pregnant with me when her sister was murdered.
Wow, that makes perfect sense.
Hang on. And her sister was strangled to death.
Mm,
Right.
that's
So the
awful.
trauma of my mother carried through to me. And how that works
The guilt.
is, the guilt and everything that she had was that at 6 months pregnant, she threatened to miscarry with me.
Wow.
And at about 18 months old, 19 months old, and my memory, because the moon is very strong there, I remember a lot of things. I remember being in the womb. I remember being born. I remember the process. I remember a lot of things. And people think I'm crazy, but no, I actually remember it. I know and feel it. That's why I have issues with suffocation, because I don't want to be suffocated. And at 18 months old, I sat in the high chair and told my mum off in front of other people. We were sitting at lunch. At lunch, I remember sitting in the high chair, and I told my mum I wanted to be born in September and not December, and it was all her fault, and she was drowning me, and I was being held in, and like back then, as an 18-month-old kid, how did I even know what September and December were?
Yeah.
I knew it, and
Isn't
I told her.
that interesting?
So there was a lot of, and so what it's done is it's made me very psychic. And so I saw spirit from the time I was a kid. I thought it was normal. I thought you just shared your house with other people, but people, but that sort of, I grew out of it. So basically what happened, I was born with colic. So I screamed and cried. So I had problems with my stomach. So what did they do back in the 60s? They gave you things like chloral hydrate. They drugged me to put me to sleep, keep me calm. So the first 3 months I had drugs put into my system. And then at 18 months old, I developed like a virus, which was a bit like, it was spirit. Well, it was a bit like having, no, it wasn't that. It was like, nearly like glandular fever. So they pumped me full of antibiotics before I was ready to be pumped full of antibiotics. And born out of that was an autoimmune response, which made me a celiac way before anything that was even known.
As well, yeah.
And my older brother's the same. He had a very similar thing happen to him when he was young. So then on top of it, what brings in with it is that I probably had a father who was mentally ill, bipolar schizophrenic, but it was always hidden and disguised with alcoholism.
He was high functioning.
He was high functioning and as crazy as all get out. So he was also a very smart, intelligent man, highly intelligent, where he was the number 23 chiropractor in Australia. So while it was witch doctors stuff, and he branched off into that after studying medicine and pharmacy, and decided, no, don't like that, and went off and started doing chiropractic and osteopathy, and brought in a lot of different techniques into the country. But he also died when I was 17 from being beaten up by a bunch of young guys.
Oh my God! You had two major deaths.
So I've had some pretty, lovely sort of, that's that Mercury T-square. If you look at it, they're all being brought in together. So
well, you got
I'm
all
just
those
giving you a little bit of
prolifics.
background.
But didn't he ruin himself with uppers to get?
Yeah, so my dad was mentally ill, brought about probably by taking speed as a drug.
To get him through.
Yeah, to get him through study. Because when he wanted to study, especially medicine, he was doing medicine, pharmacy, and chemistry at uni all at the same time. And when he left school, he was brought up in front of the school as the boy most likely to succeed in life and made an example of. So he wasn't, it was a high, you know, it was a highly functional guy, but then went all of a sudden started having, you know, the problems of drug psychosis. And he's probably one of the first known cases in the world that speed was an addictive drug.
Interesting. Well, you got that Neptune in your
Yeah.
12th.
Yeah, and it's intercepted in Scorpio. So it's like, so Neptune's in its accidental dignity, Uranus is in its accidental dignity, Venus is in its accidental dignity, and Jupiter's in its accidental dignity. It's by areas of life they're quite strong, but they all conflict with each other.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
No, but that is so telling with that algol. I mean, it's just it's
Yeah, you asked me what algol was. I thought I'd better explain it, but it was going to be pretty brutal.
that is so telling. And
Yeah.
and coming from your mother, and then bringing in all the psychism, and then the medications, and the first 3 months of a child's life is the life.
Yeah. So
From progression
interesting.
points, So you got your work cut out for you too.
Yeah. That's probably why we all became astrologers.
That's right. That's why you became an astrologer.
So anyway, I digress.
Oh,
But Michelle,
all right.
that's why I'm saying to you from good authority, go and try Nate. It's the only thing that's ever worked for me.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot. I mean,
Easy,
I know
isn't
I've
it?
had a lot of trauma in my life, but wow, all I can say is wow, I can't even imagine.
I'm only scratching the surface of the trauma we had as kids.
Yeah.
Let me just put it this way. My father in his crazy, he used to go to work every day. No one would know any different.
High
He
function.
ran as the chiropractor in a small country town where no one even knew he had a problem. Yet at night when he'd come home, he'd do things like dress up in a duffel coat and a black balaclava and a spear gun and pretend he was the balaclava killer of Surfer's Paradise and chase us around the house. And, so we used to have to escape and run away.
Oh my God.
Or I'd go and hide with the horse because he was scared of the horse.
Yeah,
Yeah, throwing knives and stuff. I'll give you an example. When the movie The Shining came out,
Oh no. Really?
yeah, when the movie The Shining came out, no, it's funny because it came out after we'd left my dad. And but my mum went to watch it and we were there and everyone was scared and we're all laughing because we're watching the scenes and it was just like Old Man Bailey. And we're like, actually, that's a mild version of the old man.
Oh my God. How old were you when she left him?
12. That was my idea. So my Jupiter return said, what are we hanging around for? Why don't we just go and move out to a caravan or something? And all of a sudden she's gone. That afternoon I got picked up from school and guess what? We'd moved to a caravan. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Oh
So,
my God.
yeah. Anyway, that's part and parcel of it. So it was very interesting. I mean, I could write a book, but I mean, I'm probably exposing a little more than I normally tell people. But you did ask about algol, and I just thought I'd give you a bit of a run through.
Well,
The other thing that the moon on algol is, I had to learn the lesson in my life that because think about the moon and it's about important women, so it comes down to relationship partners you choose. And I effectively chose quite readily people who pretended to be someone they weren't and turned out to be the same crazies takers and things like that I had to learn the lesson of boundaries. That's what the moon Neptune to me was all about, learning boundaries and going, you know what? No, making the right choices. And it took me a long time to get to that point.
because it's exalted in Taurus.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
And it's also trining.
But I
It's also
but
trining your sun.
it's
By sign.
house by sign it is.
Yeah.
But it is, so just so everybody knows, it's my Uranus conjunct the moon transit and my Saturn return that made me buy the school. And you're going to go, why? And I went, okay, Uranus conjunct the moon, my natal aspect from the moon to Uranus is a trine. From the 6th house of service to others to the 11th house of community. And that's why I want to build an astrology community. And what did I do? I bought it from a significant astrologer who was older than me as a lady, which is that lovely moon sextile Saturn. So I often have, as you can imagine, look at the school. All of the teachers are ladies.
Yeah, they are.
And have most of the assistants, as well as the detriment, have come from my relationships with women in one form or another. So by putting boundaries in place, I should only now develop good positive relationships with those ladies to move forward. And it's a wonderful thing, but it has taken me, second Saturn return to work it out. So,
So I have to ask, when Mars went over your moon last year, was it in June? Was that at all? Because it would also have been conjunct Algol.
What Mars going over my moon has been more significant probably in Lydia, my partner's life, than mine. It's bringing out things in her family dynamics and other things like that to deal with. My daughter, so my family, my kids have discovered a few other things as well, but it's not my doing. I'm nearly like the person who can help guide. Hang on, I think this is happening because I can see it now clearly. I never used to see it clearly. That was the Neptune. Everything was fog. But now lately, and you can ask Lydia, she's sitting on the other side of the table. Now it's fairly clear. I see things a lot better, Carolyn, and I think that's what it is. So I try not to let the Mars was also on a negative for me, was probably bringing a young gentleman into the school to help me. And he was also the deceptive one. So it still hangs around. The energy's still there, but very convincing, very thinks he knows what he's doing, very charismatic, knows how to present himself. And then when you start working with it and you peel it back, you realize that he's actually unhinged and he's not the person he said he was. So that was probably the Mars moon again. Because whenever anything hits my moon, it opposes my Neptune.
Right. Right. And then it conjoins that Pluto Uranus conjunction.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And that can be, and then that actually squares Mercury, which is the ruler of it.
I suppose the only concern I have at the moment is I've got Pluto coming up to oppose my Jupiter, and I have Saturn and Neptune going to square my Sun. So they're the only transits I have any concern about at the moment because they're interesting.
They are going to be in Aries, and they are going to be squaring your Sun head on.
Yeah.
And well, that energy is in your 5th house. So really, you're going to be building the school.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as a
no, it's actually a good thing. It's because all your energy is going to be in the 5th house.
That's right.
Building the school, building teachers, possibly building a family, building love, children. You got a new grandchild.
Yes, the other thing that's come in. Got 2 little grandkids now.
Okay. Yeah. So it's actually not a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing. It's just the process.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Have we had enough of me yet? Or are you going to just quickly do the Mercury and Venus?
Oh, let's do the Mercury V. We haven't done that yet, and then we'll go. So Mercury, his Mercury is in Sag. So I'm going to let you guys take it from here. Tell us about the Mercury in Sag. What does that mean?
A willingness to express himself openly.
Okay.
You talk about him in
what kind of way?
In optimistic ways.
Good. Positive.
It's a mutable sign, so willing to entertain and express himself in different ways, not being fixed.
Very good.
Philosophy.
Adventure, thinking about the future, planning for the future, wisdom oriented, a seeker of knowledge, seeker of truth.
Challenge conventional.
That's the Uranus Pluto. So.
Yeah, that's the square with the.
Can you hear Lydia in the background?
Yes, we should see you, Lydia.
Oh no.
She's still in a dressing gown.
I'll wave, but I'm very.
Hi, how are you?
Late flight and late night.
Yeah.
All good though. All good. We're glad to see you. You have to
I'm
come
loving
in on the
hearing your insights. Not only
good.
to this chart, but before. I heard you when I was laying down in bed. I'm thinking, wow, it's just it's so fascinating. So many layers, multi-layered.
There are. Okay, so if we look at we talked about his T-square. So if we look at his Venus is in Capricorn. Okay, so tell me now, Venus means what?
Love, likes, dislikes.
Very good.
Your values.
Your values, how
It
you
can re- can re-
relate, how you bond, how you
Pleasure,
attract things to you. What did you say?
pleasure.
Pleasure. Pleasure has to do with loyalty. It has to do with assets, what you have, things you hold. Okay, now it's in Capricorn. So what does that mean? It's in Capricorn.
So he's very responsible and structured in the way that he exhibits all those qualities that we just mentioned.
Yes, and he values them.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, if I was born into the family where he was the parent, I would consider that someone that's going to be very reliable and provide a stable home base for
Yeah.
his family.
It's a cardinal sign, so very initiator.
What's a cardinal sign? The Capricorn?
Capricorn, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that with his Venus, does he hold on to love, to relationships with that Capricorn?
There's a sense of duty and responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
like not someone that's going to squirm out of what's being expected of them.
He would do his duty, his due diligence, his responsibility. He would be responsible, practical. So, but is that challenged in his chart? No, it's supported. It's supported by the nodes. It's supported by both the south node and the north node. And it could be challenged by the Mars.
Yes.
That's a square. It's not a dead-on square, but it's a square. So he is challenged by relationships, but his tendency is to hold on. Although his Saturn is in Pisces, which is not a strong Saturn. So, but he's got a strong Venus. That's a strategic Venus. That's a strategic Venus. The Saturn in Pisces, it's emotional and it's opposed by that brute force with that Pluto and Uranus, which is actually stronger than the Saturn.
So I have a question about mutual reception. So technically, Mars doesn't rule Capricorn, but it's exalted in Capricorn. So would there be any kind of benefit to the square between Mars and Venus, given that Mars is in Venus's sign and Venus is in a sign where Mars is exalted? Or is that just simply for straight rulership?
A good question, Carolyn. How would you see that, Diane?
I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't see it. I wouldn't, because it's a stretch. What do you think, Luke?
Well, let's all pass the buck.
I think it's a stretch. I think
Yeah,
it's
I
a
know.
stretch. It's a good question.
Yes, tend to think you're right, Carolyn, in regards to just looking at relationships there. But what overpowers it is that Venus is not that comfortable in Capricorn. It's Saturn ruled, and Mars is in its detriment. So there's difficult lessons to learn about love relationships. Like I said, the people I got closest to. So really if you want to know how that's worked, for me, it's been, I don't want to commit to anything or anyone, or I don't want to be in a relationship. That's the Saturn Venus, unless I think it's going to be right. And then I'm 100% throw myself in and commit. So the issue is that Venus is also ruling the moon. And the moon is very powerful and exalted, but that poor old moon is smashed by that Neptune opposition. So I've had some very strong, and I would say because the Neptune's in the 12th house in Scorpio and intercepted, some very long sort of downwinded, somehow some sort of karmic debt to repay. I don't know what it is, but that sort of comes through as well. So it's a difficult one to say, is Venus helping that Mars? I think it does, because where I think it works for me is if I put the effort in, Mars ruling the 6th house, then I tend to get rewarded. But I didn't really get rewarded until I was later in life, which is the Venus in Capricorn.
See, I would think with that Venus in Capricorn, you would hold on.
I do.
You would stand, even though with Saturn, it looks like that Saturn gets pummeled all the time.
Pretty much.
And that's where that lesson of boundaries, I think.
Yeah, that's the
You're
bit.
holding on
I agree
despite
with Lydia
being
there.
treated really poorly.
Mm.
Yeah, lots of deception.
There's been a lot of deception directly in my life from from people.
And I think to give and give and give, and someone's not reciprocating, and you don't do it for reciprocation.
No, what Lydia is telling you is 7 years of relationships. He's probably known me to just be that I am who I am,
He
you know.
gives and gives and gives. Yeah.
So that's that moon, the positive of that
Very
moon.
generous, very generous.
Yeah, that's just what I do.
Mm.
However, I don't expect anything in return. And where that Sun and Venus works is I live with a philosophy, and maybe it's the Sag in me, and the fact that the Sun rules that Jupiter and it's in the second house, is I live by the philosophy we talked about with you, Michelle. I'm never surrounded by everything I want, but I'm always surrounded by everything I need. So if I need the universe, if I trust in it, seems to provide.
Mhm.
So I live with that faith, which is a Jupiterian thing. And I think that when I'm really, really, really in need, the universe goes, okay, here you go, and helps. So and I'm also the firm believer that one of the things that I do, you talked about the Mercury, going back to that, just giving you guys a bit of background. As a child, I probably talked too much to the point where I annoyed everybody. I've learnt to curb that a bit. Still not 100% because I'm still talking. But a lot more controlled in the way I do things like that. The other thing is, and it probably gets me into trouble, I talk to everybody. I don't care.
You find their story, don't you?
I make time to ask everyone how's their day, what they're doing, and then people look at me strange. Lydia has a little story about one of her friends when we went to, you can tell it about when we went to.
He went, I think I've told you this before, Diane. We went to get a coffee, and then he brings these are my school friends that I'm still in contact with, all these coffees. And he said, oh, the guy there, his name's so and such, and he's lived in the area for da-da-da-da-da. And he's studying to be a so and such. And my friend goes, all that from a coffee? She couldn't believe you'd extracted that much information from someone who's multitasking, talking to you, but making the coffee at the same time, and telling his life story. This young lad.
Yeah.
Which is really beautiful.
But that's genuinely what I do. I always ask somebody, how's their day? How are you going? You know, and sometimes they look at me shocked, like, how come you're talking to me? But you generally get, if you take an interest in others, and the funniest thing is it always leads you to the most interesting places. That's that Sag in me that goes, a seeker, looking for something new, looking for, and just making it as part of my philosophy that I just talk to people. It's the adventure.
And connection with people, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's basically how that. So what I had to do was learn to moderate, because that's the T square, and then communicate and let people talk. So the old adage is that you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you're going to get more out of listening than you're out of talking. So my philosophy is ask people questions and let them talk, and then you learn.
Then you learn. But then, because you got a quincunx between your Jupiter and your Sun. So
Constant adjustments.
May not like what you hear.
No.
Or you might have to make adjustments in what you want to do in order to grow and evolve. I mean, it's like you're constantly making adjustments with that Sun, quincunx Jupiter. You're constantly making adjustments in order to grow.
Yeah, exactly. That's a pain in the butt, to be honest. But anyway, that's another story. All right,
it's an interesting ride, isn't it?
There you go. It's an interesting
quickly
ride.
Jump into the Mars, because I reckon everyone's probably going to be falling asleep on your end pretty soon.
Well, we did. We somewhat did talk about the Mars. So he's got a Mars in Libra. So tell me about his Mars in Libra. What house is it in?
11th. Is that community?
So where would he assert himself in the world? Where would he tend to put his efforts?
People that have shared interests and goals, his community.
Groups, teams, organizations.
He would be more diplomatic in his approach.
Yes, because it's in Libra. So he'd be good with people.
Yeah.
Also but he's also practical because you follow that back to the Venus who rules the Libra, and you know, that's in Capricorn. So he's practical. He's good with people. He's practical with people, but also it's a square. So because he wants to be liked. Libras want to be liked, or they want their actions to be liked or accepted, or he wants people to be fair and equal. But again, that's his Venus. He wants to be seen that way. He wants to behave that way, but he's constantly challenged in order to do that. Would that be true, Luke?
Yes, that's true. I've come to the conclusion, maybe it's my Uranus Pluto sitting in that house with it, that if people don't like me, it's like, well, bad luck. I am who I am. I'm genuine. If you take me the wrong way, well, that's sort of, I've done my best to be who I am. And if you don't like it, then see you later.
I think even with people that, it's just a matter of life, isn't it? Where people just they don't like you for absolutely no reason. They don't know you. And he always approaches people and says, well, I don't give them any reason to dislike me. And here I'm talking about family, and I'm talking about not biological family, but ring-ins, people's siblings, partners and stuff. And yet he always greets them courteously. And he said, I give them absolutely no reason. And they find that confronting, don't they? They're kind of awkward. They're more the type of people to absolutely ignore somebody. And Luke kind of smashes through that with this beautiful handshake. And whereas I
go, how are you going? Just to make them feel really
noble.
uncomfortable. So
No, but I think it's innately in your chart, because with that Uranus and Pluto sextiling that Neptune intercepted in the 12th house, I mean, you attract people who are takers and they want something from you. I mean, they're takers. You attract takers, and you're trying to be nice and pleasant and equal, but this goes on behind the scenes. It's like a pattern in the chart.
exactly. Working through. Yep. 100%.
Yeah, that's the lesson of boundaries, isn't it? That generosity, but at what cost? With generosity of spirit as well. Yeah.
But
Well,
but you
I
follow the North Node. You always follow the North Node in the chart.
yeah. Well, there's a very strong trine between that and Venus.
Taurus.
Yes, yes. There is a very strong trine between that and Venus. So, and actually, that Venus is a strong Venus. You just have to strengthen that Saturn.
Yeah.
The Saturn is probably the weak spot, but if you can strengthen that Saturn, I think the whole chart pulls itself together.
And what was the word we used? Boundaries.
Yeah.
Saturn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's saying
All right.
no.
Thank you
No,
all.
saying no to the takers.
Yeah.
It's the school of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And it's also calling on your divine grace and your divine wisdom and your divine help on the other side. That because you can use that Piscean energy and that Neptune, use the positive influences instead of the negative influences.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, thank you for that. We've spent a bit of time on mine.
All right. Well, I think we're done here.
Done like a dinner, as we say. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Diane, for inviting me. It was very interesting and I learned a lot. And thank you,
Good.
Luke, for the insight. And I will check into that and let you know
You're welcome, Michelle.
if I find someone that can help me.
Well, are you members of our little community here or the Astro College
No.
community? So
No.
I'll share
How
your
do I-
link to join it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. It was fun.
Thanks,
All right.
Carolyn. Good to see you again.
So let me go to home. So what I'll do is I'll just put a link in the chat. And if
Okay.
you click on it, you can, whoops, hang on, that's my share screen. I didn't want to share screen. Go away. Okay, chat. This will take you through to where you can just sign up, just an email address, and then you create a password, and then you'll be in there with other people. And all these events are all highlighted in a calendar, which will come up in your time zone.
Okay,
you can see
great.
them. So this will be every fortnight. You'll have different people. Diane won't be the next one. I'm not sure who the next one is. It might be, I do know, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
You want me to be the host so you can show her?
If you like.
Yeah, let me do that. How do I do that? I go to participants.
Yeah, in a minute. I better. Oh, yeah, okay. I
Make
shouldn't, but yeah, you can.
All right, I made you the host.
You made me host. Okay. So here's the community as such. And you can see there's
Okay, yeah, that
158
came
members
up.
now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So when you log in, you've got all, so the other chart reading practices are down here. So this one
Mhm.
will be posted. Just going to take a minute because we're on Zoom, so it's going to take a second to load. But so this was the one with Elena on the 3rd of May and Barbie, Jodie Forrest. Last time you were on, Diane, was the 21st of March.
Yeah.
Enid and Jennifer Barish, and then Enid did one there and Barbie did one. So everyone's basically, the whole idea of this is for different people who are involved, teachers and other people involved with the college, that anyone can jump in and go through these sessions, and we just do a chart delineation practice. The radio show, this is where those example episodes are, and you can listen from here. But if you click on these, for example, you can just go in there and we can listen to it.
Oh, wonderful.
See, it's on there and it's a
Hmm.
bit loud. So we have other free seminars which we've done. Jodie completed one the other day on presenting and preparing readings. She did it before that as well, about a month ago, but they're different charts she used. There's the introduction to astrology software. There's me doing an introduction to tarot, which went for a while because I do that as well. The beginners astro dice sessions, they get posted in here as well. Moonlit musings these are the episodes which are more for people who are coming in. So Taylor's been doing that. I've got a student hangout, which has not really got much in there. I've started putting in more learning stuff in here, which people can purchase. So in here, we will have self-learning environment we're going to start with Nat 1, and as well as a few other things there. There's your Mars retrograde that's still in there. And where's your look ahead? So Diane does have a couple of seminars which she's done that can still be purchased. We've got other ones that Elena's done, and then I'm going to start adding a bucket load in here. There will end up with about 400 different videos in here that are going to come
Wow.
out of Astrology Flicks and come into there. There's our members. You can chat with a member, so you can pick somebody you want to talk to and go from there. You've also got the events calendar. So this is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So today we have, what's the date today? The 17th for me. Don't get me wrong, because this is in my time zone. Okay.
Right.
So if we look here, that's when the Cosmic Radio Show was on. So I don't really get up at 6:30 on a Saturday morning. So I don't really jump in and listen to that one live. But there's your beginners astro dice and your fortnightly. That's what we're on at the moment. This is our
Okay.
time right now. It's telling us where we are. So we've gone a bit overtime.
Oh, a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A bit overtime.
that's okay.
But this is where, so anywhere in here, this is where you'll have the different courses that are being run. Anyone in green will be seminars that people are doing. So this is, say, for example, if you wanted to learn about draconic astrology, Jen Barish is doing one of those. That one's a purchasable one, but you just click on the link and off you go to that. I'm not sure about the leaderboard yet, but this is more about who's where. So Cheryl Ann, she's been doing some stuff. So it adds, oh, look at that. She's with leaderboard for the last 30 days and all-time leader. So she's been doing a lot of interacting. So what happens is I can create different things and give people things away. I might go, the more you interact, we're going to give you access to a few different videos to watch and seminars and stuff like that, whereas normally you might pay for it. So we're going to start being able to do all those sorts of things. The courses that are there, if I click on here, and these are, and I can open those. They're in my library because I've actually created them. See, but this is where I'll be, all the different ones that are in here that people can use, and there will be a lot more to go in there. If I want to search, so if I put in word introduction and I search for it, there's anything with the word introduction in it, come up, click on it. And so when there's 400 in there, you're going to have to use that search.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. Now there's also, Diane, I haven't told you guys yet, but let me just find it. I'm just going to go to
Tell her
something.
about the Nate 1 class.
The Nate. Oh, which one? Oh, the Nat 1.
Yeah, because he offers courses.
Oh, well,
Where
I
you-
would suggest Michelle probably start with the basic astrology class to start with.
Right.
only because what we went through today, did you follow that easily? Let's put it that way.
Most of it, it just, when you went to start to read charts, then it was just too much because, like I understand little things, but that class I took, I mean, what Diane did like in 10 minutes was the whole class, like for 6 weeks. That's what the book
Right.
was about. But the one thing I just need to be able to do is to be able to say, okay, Mars is in Gemini, which means what? And be able to just take it and break it down and practice that based
You'll
on.
need to book one of these. Can you see
Okay.
that screen there?
Mm-hmm.
So if you clicked on this one, at the moment, this is a 10-week course, okay? And if you, normally what I do is when it gets a bit closer, I have an early bird discount, and I've been discounting this quite a bit purposely to try and get more people to do these classes, because then they move into possibly starting with the NAT classes. Meaning if you ever wanted to become a professional astrologer, that's the whole point. If I go back to here, like for example, I've had people come in and buy, they want to do a 4-year course. So if you actually wanted to be an astrologer, then you'd start with the basic, you've got your foundations. It goes over about 4 years, really, because you've got all of this. You got your basic course, that'll be where you know where you're at. Then you do your foundations, and that's when you start doing homeworks. Nat 2's the planets. Now, if you go to this link, I got a little video that talks about each one. Welcome to Foundations. So it'll give you a bit of a description of what's there. I'll put this link. I'm not saying to you buy the package, but I'm saying to you, if I put the link in, it'll give you a little on the one page, you can watch all the different videos about what you're learning, right? But we do have already a couple of people who have already bought. Why can't I do that? Where is it? Where's the, there we are, chat. I'm going to go to the chat section. I've just put the link in.
Okay.
So you can see that. And if you go down, it sort of explains what each class does. And then online, number 2 is the planets. Welcome to Planets in Astrology. What we're going to be doing is I'm going to have a self-learning version where I can. And ultimately, how we're rebuilding the school will be that certain things like this one here, deepening planetary delineations, that's probably not something you can really do self-teaching. There might be a part of it you can watch videos and learn, but you're going to learn best by having an element of class time. So ultimately what we'll do is we'll have people who buy the self-learning versions of these. And when they've got the self-learning version of it, they go through it. And as they're self-learning, we will hold different events within the community where people can go, it's a Nat1 Q&A session. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I'm in here and I want to create an event, I can create it, but down here, I can have members of a course.
Okay.
So I can make certain events only available to people who are members of a course. And then I said members at a level. Remember, I talked about if they've got their own sort of level in the leaderboard. So I can make things available to them for free for that. But this might be the fact that you've got that. Now, one of the things that happens and has happened with our previous students, someone comes in and they want to study and they start their natal astrology studies. And I will emphasize something. When you look at that link that's got the 4-year course, the NAT modules 1 through to 7, if you finish that, which will take you about 2 years, you would still be good enough to be a practicing professional astrologer. You don't have to do the professional studies afterwards if you didn't want to. You could go away with that and become quite a valid professional astrologer. There's enough in that easily. That's your natal. That means I'm now an astrologer. I've got my degree, but if I want to specialize and become a professional in certain areas, then I extend into the other areas. That's sort of how it works.
My real interest in it is obviously for myself, but also I do genealogy, and there's been people in my life that in our family tree who have fallen out. And I want to know more about them and what they struggled with and why things happened the way they did by learning their charts.
Gotcha. Are these people in the past you're talking about?
Yeah, these are people who are dead. Like in an instance, my dad's mother, she left when he was 3 because she was forced out. But it took me years of genealogy to understand where she ended, and she ended up dying from cirrhosis of the liver because she was an alcoholic.
Okay.
And so I would like to understand, based on, well, she was married 3 times and that kind of thing, just to really sort of know her, because we don't know anything about the family. And I really have, it's been something that's been within me my whole life. My dad,
Yeah.
the fact that my dad lost his mother has affected my life.
Okay.
And I really want to understand who she was. And I feel like that's about the way I'm going to learn.
I also think that some of your health challenges are from that.
Yeah. And it could
That'll all
very well be
related.
because my father is the one thing that caused me to have the thing that I fear the most, and that is people leaving me. My father left when I was 5 and he wouldn't take me with him. And it was something that affected my life. And ever since then, anytime a person leaves, especially a man that I love leaves, it's
drawing at me.
catastrophic. I know it's something I want to do.
Sorry.
And so
Yeah.
So
So
there's a
the-
tremendous amount of resources here. There are
Mhm.
free resources, there are community resources, and there are paid resources that will give you certifications and a credibility.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's really
So
based on what
I would really start at the basic astrology course. I would suggest you do that one-on-one with a teacher for the 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Because Lydia did it, and she'll tell you. She's been in your position, as in she's studied astrology or had an interest in it for what? Since you were a teenager, right? And so she went through that, and she did that with Barbie and Courtney. And out of it, now can interpret a chart-ish, right? But she understands it when she looks at the chart, like you could hear her before. Oh, that's because that's there, that's there, that's there. So she's getting it into a usable form. And that might be enough for you to get insight into your family stuff. And then if you wanted more insight, that still might be enough if you sort of come and join these things. You know what I mean?
Correct.
You just come
Yeah,
along and
correct.
you do the chart, and then you might even bring a chart along and say, can someone give me a bit of insight into this? No problem with doing that. That's the whole idea of the chart delineation sections. If you brought that along and one of the teachers is here and they're doing it, and say, is there any chance I can throw a chart up of someone as an old family member and just get a quick delineation? They'd go, sure, that's exactly what we're looking for. Because it's all about learning to delineate and just keep practicing. So that might be enough for you. You might find that sparks a bigger interest and you go, no, I want to learn this more detail. So that's sort of what's happened to Lydia a bit. She's probably thrown herself in the deep end going, uh-oh, now I've got homework. Oh my God, there's more to it. Because it is, and that's why Diane laughs and I laugh, because it really is opening up Pandora's box. And you
And I go down rabbit holes, like with genealogy, I went down rabbit holes and actually, almost could feel like that deep darkness that was felt. But I feel like astrology can really give me some better insight of, oh, well, this is what happened with energies and things. And so maybe it would take some of that, the darkness of not knowing why that happened, to say, oh, well, I can see why now,
Yeah.
Well, what we will do, I haven't done it yet, but I'll be advertising, and it won't be until your fall, I don't think, really, that we do start the next basic astrology course. So it'll be
and that would be when I would be interested, because I've had a lot of health problems, and since the beginning of March, I felt the best I felt in a long time, and I'm enjoying life right now. And I want to take the summer and pace myself, but enjoy life a little bit, because I've had a hard couple years.
Well, what I was going to say is you're quite welcome to join up here, get the notifications, and come back for these chart delineation sessions every fortnight. They're just on a Friday night every fortnight, and just sort of start familiarizing yourself, and you'll have a different teacher with a different perspective. And that was the whole idea, because I don't know two astrologers that interpret things the same. I mean, look, today I learnt stuff from Diane, and I think, one of the things that stood out made me sort of go, oh, okay, Diane wasn't aware of that. When I mentioned something like small animals comes under the 6th house because they're a responsibility. And I think
I've never heard that before.
You see what I mean? So there's always something we
Yeah.
learn from somebody.
Right.
So
Right.
And I never knew what fortnight meant.
what fortnight meant? Okay, well, this is just maybe it's different forms of English. We're Aussies, you know. Yeah. So once a fortnight, meaning every 2 weeks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
See what you
Fortnightly.
learned tonight, Michelle?
Yeah, a lot.
So-
Yeah. I have enjoyed, I got into something with Henry Seltzer. You ever heard of him? He's an astrologer in California. I
Right.
got on his mailing list, which led me into an annual set of free seminars that
Yep.
you listen to. And it's expanded. Sometimes some of the stuff's way above my head, but some of it's been very interesting and helped me understand astrology a little bit better. But I know I need the basics to be able to
Yeah.
really feel like comfortable to say, yes, I know this and I feel confident I can look at this and say, this is what this says.
Yeah.
And so,
And
yeah.
that's exactly what I think would be the best. I say that with my hand on my heart because Lydia did it, and how she came to doing it was we were low on numbers for it, and she said, "We want me to jump in." I went, "Yeah." So she jumped in to do it, and then all of a sudden, it just found herself loving what she was learning. So
Mhm.
it was. You're a little bit like in the same.
Pandora's box because it's so multi-layered.
Yes.
So anyway, I think. What time is
Yeah,
it for you guys? It must be like after midnight nearly. would it?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
well, I
time
have to go. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you very much and have a good night.